is my destiny. It is also my curse. Lufia is cursed with immortality. Whenever she dies, she is reborn again and again, carrying the memories of her past lives. She has been a renowned great magician. She has also been a formidable general, single-handedly holding off 10,000 foes. She has even been reborn as a witch, burned alive at the stake. In this life, she is reborn as the unloved daughter of Duke Lucerne, just a useless princess, deprived of love since childhood and lacking in vitality as she grew up. This life, I just want to rest. 1,000 years of reincarnation has left me utterly exhausted. Let me live like a sloth. After her rebirth, Lufia wasn't particularly surprised. She lounged in bed like a lotus beauty. In this life, let me rest well. But at that moment, a woman pushed open the door to her room. She came up to Lufia and started shouting at her. Lufia gestured for the woman before her to be quiet, then began to leisurely access the memories of this body. The woman, seeing this scene, was infuriated. In her memories, her father was a scoundrel who ignored her. She also had to endure abuse from her stepmother. The servants in the house all looked down on the owner of this body. These things won't let me rest, will they? The stepmother, watching Lufia's behavior, was grinding her teeth in anger. You've become more and more ill-mannered lately. Lufia, who had lived for over 1,000 years, was already accustomed to such things. Facing her unreasonable stepmother, Lufia gave her a princess's curtsy. The stepmother kept on talking nonstop. Lufia shot a fierce glare at her stepmother. The pampered stepmother was startled. Leaving with a "This isn't over, you remember that," she slammed the door shut as she left. Lufia went to the mirror. Looking at herself in the mirror, she appeared like a celestial beauty descended from heaven. After all, having lived for 1,000 years, what kind of beauty hadn't she seen? Her heart didn't stir at all. From her experience, being too beautiful was quite troublesome. It truly was a case of beauty bringing misfortune. She lay down and started thinking about the future. Marry a man without ambition, then let him neglect me. That way, I can spend my life peacefully and quietly. Thinking of this, she revealed a mischievous smile. After a yawn, she slowly drifted off to sleep. Just as Lufia was pondering and about to fall asleep again, the door was kicked open with a bang. The one shouting before her eyes was her stepmother's son. Behind him was the furious stepmother. So, the stepmother had found reinforcements to deal with her. It seems another war of words is coming. Can't you just let me rest for a while? The young woman before their eyes had actually lived for over 1,000 years. Now, in her 54th reincarnation, she was a princess unloved by her father and stepmother. Despite experiencing so many lifetimes, she still couldn't forget her first life. The feeling of parting with her loved one still brought tears to her eyes when she recalled it now. Lufia got up to find food. When feeling down, only delicious food could truly heal the heart. Lufia called for the maids to prepare a feast for her, but these arrogant maids showed no concern on their faces. They even bluntly said that the mealtime had passed and there was no food available now. Lufia was puzzled. If there are no ingredients, go buy some. If there's no food, hurry up and make some. Can a living person be killed by holding in their pee? The princess's unusual attitude first startled the maids, but they still obeyed, albeit with their heads held high in pride. Lufia lazily pondered how to proceed with her life from here on. In this lifetime, she truly wanted to rest well. With a clang, the maid had already brought up the prepared meal. The food before her eyes was black and unappetizing. The maid beside her was still fuming and informed the princess that this was all the food available. If you're hungry in the future, please eat during meal times. Otherwise, no one will indulge your bad habits. This was truly too arrogant. Not to mention that Lufia had lived for thousands of years. The 20-something maid before her was just a child in her eyes. Given her status alone, how dare this maid be so disrespectful? Lufia stood up immediately and gave the maid a resounding slap, teaching her a lesson in manners. Perhaps accustomed to being insolent, the maid, knocked to the ground, still dared to glare fiercely at Lufia. Lufia glared back just as fiercely. I'm a grand princess of Duke Lucerne's household. Disrespecting me is equivalent to disrespecting the entire ducal family. Do you want to make an enemy of the entire duke's household? Or do you have 10 lives and thus don't fear death? Hearing these words, the cowardly maid trembled in fear. The other maids who had bullied Lufia before also knelt down one after another. Lufia's firm attitude made them realize that no matter how unwelcome Lufia was in this family, she was still the daughter of the Grand Duke. She wasn't someone that mere maids like them could bully at will. As Lufia ate the new meal prepared by the maids, she fell into thought again. She was truly tired. This life, she just wanted to be a little lazy pig who ate and slept. If she wanted to deal with her stepmother and those people who always try to bully her to secure a comfortable living environment for herself, it might take a lot of time. Moreover, she was already engaged to the fourth prince. The fourth prince was powerful and might even threaten the crown prince's position in the future. If she were to marry him, she would have to engage in power struggles with noble ladies on one side, while helping the fourth prince expand his influence on the other. There would truly be no peaceful days then. Just then, a guard announced that Duke Dongjing wanted to summon Lufia. Without a doubt, her stepmother must have gone there to complain again. But this actually suited Lufia's purposes. Lufia, who had been reborn 54 times, was in this life an unloved and weak-willed duke's daughter. Just a few hours ago, Lufia's wicked stepmother and her son had come to cause trouble for her again, but were firmly rebuffed by Lufia. As a result, the stepmother had run to the duke to complain. The duke, who usually ignored his daughter, had summoned this child of his former wife. But what intrigued him was that Lufia didn't seem to tremble in fear upon seeing him today. Lufia still responded with a firm attitude. "I haven't done anything wrong. Why should I be afraid?" Her old father was taken aback at first. Then he muttered, "You seem like a different person." Lufia coldly replied, "I'm still in my developmental stage. I might grow taller even after just one night's sleep. You haven't communicated with me for so long, so it's not surprising that you feel I've changed a lot." The once timid and cowardly daughter now seemed to have become sharp-tongued. The Duke seemed to be even more displeased. He got straight to the point. "Regardless of who's right or wrong between you two, that woman is your mother. I'll put in a good word for you with your mother this time, but I hope that you two won't have any more conflicts in the future." Lufia clearly didn't want to let this go. Why should she, the biggest victim, have to carefully compromise with others? Lufia solemnly said to the Duke, "In this family, my heart has been severely wounded, even festering. Generally, there are two ways to treat a festering wound. The first is to slowly use medicine to heal the wound. The second is to directly cut off the festering part. But now I choose to use the second method. I've already decided. Today, I'm leaving this family." These words left the Duke stunned and speechless. With a gloomy expression, he said, "Do you think I'll agree?" Lufia's attitude remained firm. "You'll have to agree whether you want to or not. The situation we're in today is entirely because of you, Duke. My lord, I know that if I stay in this family, I'll be an eyesore to you and my stepmother, and I'll continue to be hurt. It's better to make a clean break today. This way, you'll have peace, and I can live my own life properly." These words left her old man with no grounds for refutation. He was about to say something, but Lufia bid her final farewell. "Thank you for raising me, father. I wish you good fortune and prosperity, like a kite soaring in the wind. May you have wealth, power, and a bright future year after year. Today we part ways. If fate allows, we'll meet again in this vast world." The old man was about to stand up to stop her, but Lufia had already coldly closed the door behind her. The delicate-looking noble lady before his eyes packed her simple luggage, preparing to run away from home. Don't think that she, accustomed to a life of luxury, would surely starve outside. She was a professional at rebirth, having been reborn 54 times. Not to mention being a business tycoon, she had even been the empress of a foreign country. Lufia, who had just been reborn into this family, didn't want to live the life of a scheming noble anymore. She just wanted to find a place to retire quietly. Moreover, no one in this family loved her anyway. Lufia was about to leave this house with her luggage when her stepmother's son stopped her. Hearing that Lufia was planning to run away from home, her elder brother was shocked. "Are you joking? It's almost dark outside now." Lufia coldly replied, "This family has no place for me. Leaving is the best solution." She then left some well wishes for her brother to find love soon and prepare to leave. Seeing his sister's determination to leave, this brother who usually liked to bully Lufia acted out of character. He gave Lufia a necklace filled with powerful magic. This necklace was equivalent to the Duke family's token. No matter what difficulties she might encounter, showing this necklace would basically solve any problem. Holding this necklace, Lufia pondered. When she had transmigrated into this body, its original owner had just died. She had died alone in her bed, with no one to take care of her. If she were still alive, it would have been nice if this brother had known to treat her better. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Duke, who had been indifferent to Lufia, also received news that the princess was really preparing to run away from home. The Duke ordered a trusted knight to secretly protect the princess. He believed the princess was just acting on impulse and would return soon. But if the princess really seemed determined to leave the country, then he should forcibly bring her back. At this moment, the butler, who had been witnessing everything, spoke up. "Sir, the princess looks very different today. Usually, she's weak and timid, but today she looks incredibly strong. I have a feeling she might really fly far away, to a place where no one can find her. And if the princess comes back, what do you plan to do? Will you treat her the same as before? You've seen it too. The young lady seems to be living very unhappily in this family." The Duke interrupted the chattering butler. "That's enough. I understand everything," he said, heaving a long sigh. At this moment, the old father's silhouette looked incredibly lonely. This delicate, noble lady was preparing to run away from home. She was already tired of the overt and covert struggles among the nobility. In this life, she just wanted to rest and be a little lazy pig. Lufia picked up her luggage, ready to leave home. Behind her, a soft, gentle voice called out to Lufia. Lufia was startled. Turning around, she saw an adorable maid following her. With tears in her eyes, the maid begged the princess to take her along. This cute little girl in front of her was named Mary. She was the only one in this family who protected Lufia. Lufia declared, "I'm running away from home. You'll suffer if you come with me." Little Mary continued to plead, innocently expressing that she simply liked the young lady and wanted to be with her. These words stirred memories in Lufia. In her first life, that man had said the same thing. Lufia stroked Mary's head and thought, "Since you want to, then come with me." Mary even said she would earn a lot of money to support the young lady. Lufia was charmed by this adorable little maid. After all, who could resist such a cute girl? Lufia asked little Mary what she liked to eat. Mary shyly said she liked filet mignon, but she had only seen the masters eat it and had never tried it herself. Hearing these words, Lufia burst into laughter. "Then let's have filet mignon tonight." Mary was shocked. "But we don't have money." Lufia smiled gently. Earning money is the easiest thing. The two arrived in a small town and found a music store. In her previous rebirths, Lufia had once been a great musician. She negotiated with the owner. "Lend me this instrument for 2 hours, and I'll give you half its price, which is 5 mana. Both the owner and Mary were stunned, because this instrument only sold for 10 mana. The owner, seeing Lufia's noble air, lent it to her. Lufia chose a bridge with a high flow of people. She instructed little Mary to just hold out a hat. As a melodious music began to play, the air seemed to grow still. This heavenly sound floated above the small town. Everyone on the bridge focused their gaze on Lufia. At this moment, she was a Hall of Fame level performer. One by one, mana coins fell into Mary's hat. The audience members all wanted to invite Lufia to perform at their family events, even coming to blows over the invitations. Seizing the right moment, Lufia slipped away. Mary counted the mana in the hat. There were exactly 300 coins. This was equivalent to a common person's monthly income. To think that this young lady, who was bullied every day, turned out to be a musical genius. Mary's eyes sparkled, her admiration for Lufia growing even more. With the earned money, Lufia took Mary to a high-class restaurant. Little Mary said they didn't need to come to such a place just for her. Lufia raised her wine glass haughtily, saying with feigned indifference, "It's not because of you. I just really wanted to eat here myself." Despite her words, little Mary had fulfilled her dream and was moved to tears. While enjoying the delicious food, Mary inquired of Lady Lufia, "How shall we live from now on? Will we continue as traveling minstrels?" Lufia smiled gently. Her own goal was to be a little lazy pig who just eats and sleeps. How could she possibly continue performing? She was going to school next. Having lived for thousands of years through multiple rebirths, in this life, she just wanted to find a place to rest peacefully. As it turned out, her destination was the continent's top institution, Lynette Academy. What a move, retiring into school. What kind of strategy was this? The maid Mary exclaimed that it was so inspiring. So the young lady had run away from home to study abroad. But how could she understand Lufia's thoughts? Actually, it was because that school provided food and lodging once you were admitted. Moreover, if your test scores were good enough, you didn't even have to attend classes. Lufia had once been a teacher herself, so her abilities were beyond question. Therefore, That school was practically a retirement paradise for Lufia. The next day, Lufia and her maid packed their bags. They prepared to take a ship to the country where the academy was located. But as soon as they opened the door, there was a suspicious man in black outside. Lufia recognized him at once. Wasn't this the most loyal knight of her Duke father? The knight began to explain to Lufia, "The Duke has sent me to secretly protect the young lady's safety. So please understand, young lady. I'll just follow quietly and won't disturb you." But Lufia didn't say anything upon hearing this. Instead, she sympathized with the knight's hardship. She invited the knight into the room and made him a cup of hot tea. The knight, who hadn't eaten or rested properly for 2 days, was exhausted. He drank the hot tea in one gulp. Then he pleaded with the young lady to return with him, saying the Duke was very worried. Seeing that the knight had already drunk the tea, Lufia no longer beat around the bush. She stated plainly that she wouldn't go back, and that she would be leaving the country by ship soon. The knight was shocked. This absolutely couldn't happen. The outside world was very dangerous for the young lady. According to the Duke's orders, he would have to forcibly take her back. Lufia sipped her tea and said calmly, "I didn't expect the Duke would give such an order. It's quite surprising indeed. However, it seems you can no longer take me away." As soon as she finished speaking, the knight began to feel dizzy. It turned out that Lufia had slipped a sleeping potion into the knight's tea. He wouldn't wake up for quite a while. Lufia and her maid Mary moved the knight onto the bed. Now it was time to embark on the journey to a beautiful new world. The 1,000-year-old runaway princess and her maid took a ship to a new country. Mary, looking like she had never seen the world before, was incredibly excited. But Lufia appeared indifferent, finding nothing particularly novel. After all, having lived in this world for thousands of years, she had already been everywhere. As she set foot on this familiar land, once again, Lufia's memories of this place began to surface in her mind. In that life, her name was Lynette, and she was a teacher. The kind-hearted Lynette had adopted 5 orphans locally to create a learning environment for the orphans. She used her own funds to build a small house on this barren island to educate the children. She even gave the children the right to name the school. In the end, the children unanimously decided to name it after their teacher. Who would have thought that many years later, this small house filled with Lufia's and the children's laughter would develop into the continent's top school? Countless sages and great individuals had emerged from this school. Moreover, it had developed this island into a first-tier city. It had been 200 years since the founding of this school. Now Lufia was about to enter it again, but this time as a student. Lufia submitted her exam application. The entrance exam would be held in a week. Mary cheered her on. "I believe my lady will surely pass the exam." 200 years have passed. I wonder how much the exam questions have changed, Lufia mused. At this moment, Lufia felt a bit unsure about the exam. She went to the library to check what books the school was using as textbooks. The sunlight from outside shone on Lufia's beautiful hair. The peaceful atmosphere made her feel incredibly comfortable. The memories of scheming with noble ladies, battling enemies on the battlefield, and the exhaustion of reviewing memorials on the throne, all those unpleasant memories were swept away at this moment. Lufia felt a sense of contentment. This kind of leisurely moment was the life she had always dreamed of. However, the good times didn't last long. Feeling tired from reading, Lufia went out for a walk. Unexpectedly, she encountered a green tea girl with pink hair. The girl was the daughter of a marquis in the empire. She immediately started mocking Lufia. "I'm so surprised. I never thought a pampered princess would come here to take the exam. You know, passing the exam for this school would bring honor to the family. But if you fail, it would become a stain on the family's reputation. Princess, you're really courageous." Her words were full of sarcasm towards Lufia, implying, "How dare an ignorant little good-for-nothing like you apply to this school?" Although Lufia didn't want to bother with her, she found this pink-haired little girl quite adorable. So she decided to play along for a bit. Under the pretext of asking for help with difficult questions, Lufia posed several challenging questions about history, mathematics, and even physics to the pink-haired girl. The girl was left dumbfounded. Seeing that she couldn't answer, Lufia then proceeded to answer the questions herself, perfectly explaining the solutions to these difficult problems. The pink-haired girl, defeated in her first provocation, could only slink away. She left with a parting shot, "Don't get cocky. We'll see each other in the exam." The thousand-year-old princess looked at the exam paper before her with concern. She wasn't stumped by the questions, but rather pondering how many points would be appropriate to score. Not knowing the passing score for the academy, she feared scoring too low and not being admitted. Yet she also worried about scoring too high and being seen as a genius for special cultivation, which would ruin her plans to retire peacefully here. Glancing back at the pink-haired girl, she saw her expression brimming with confidence. Lufia felt reassured. It seemed this exam was quite simple. She decided to aim for 90 points. Lufia smoothly filled in her answers on the exam paper, secretly rejoicing. Here I come, my leisurely retirement life. After the exam, Lufia lay on her bed resting. She had already started preparing for her sloth-like life. Her maid Mary worried for her. I wonder if my lady will be admitted. Lufia replied confidently, it's a piece of cake. Have you forgotten? I'm a genius. Mary sighed in relief upon hearing this. Hearing you say that puts me at ease. I had heard other examinees complaining that the questions were quite difficult this time. Lufia sat up abruptly. What did you say? The questions were very difficult, Mary replied. I heard it was the most difficult exam in the past decade. Many examinees packed up and went home right after finishing the paper. They couldn't bear to wait for the results. Lufia's heart sank. Oh no, what should I do? The next day, the academy released the exam results and rankings. The staff member, upon hearing that the person before them was Princess Lufia, immediately stood up. The staff's exaggerated reaction had already given Lufia an ominous premonition. With a pounding heart and trembling hands, she tore open the envelope to take a peek. The maid, seeing the princess's expression, began to worry. Lufia also felt a chill run down her spine. Indeed, this year's students had no rising stars. A score of 90 had secured first place, which greatly agitated Lufia. At this moment, the pink-haired girl who ranked second wore a very punchable expression. She was courting death by running over to challenge Lufia. She even said, Your Highness, even if you didn't do well, don't furrow your brow. Otherwise, getting all worked up will make your face break out in acne. At worst, just treat this year as a relaxing trip. Go back, regroup, and come back next year for revenge. Let Daddy take a look at exactly how many points you got. At this point, the staff member wanted to remind that arrogant girl that the princess had actually taken first place in this exam. Lufia, not wanting to show off, quickly silenced the man. The princess's sudden outburst startled the staff member, making him tremble violently. The pink-haired girl, seeing this scene, couldn't help but laugh out loud. Oh my, how badly did you do? Did you only get a dozen points, or so? She then walked away smugly. Lufia quickly apologized to the staff member, explaining that she was just shy and didn't want others to know her score. However, the staff member wasn't angry at all and even mentioned that a heavyweight figure wanted to see her. The thousand-year-old princess only wanted to enroll in a school that provided room and board to retire peacefully. She didn't expect to accidentally come in first place. The elderly headmaster before her summoned Lufia and said, Princess, not only are you first among this year's students, but you've also broken the record for the highest exam score in our academy's 200-year history. It's over. Lufia knew she had gotten herself into big trouble now. She asked the old headmaster, There's something I'm not sure if I should say. But before the old headmaster could answer, Lufia had already started speaking. My high score this time was purely due to good luck. Actually, I didn't know any of those questions. I just guessed randomly. The old headmaster laughed heartily. Princess, not only are you highly talented, but I didn't expect your personality to be so modest as well. Don't try to pull the wool over my eyes. I might believe you if you said you guessed the multiple choice questions, but the essay you wrote. Forgive my frankness, but even if the literary Saint Zhang Fei were reborn, he might not match your literary talent. The old headmaster suddenly burst with passionate energy, letting out a long roar. In short, during my tenure as headmaster, to have a once-in-a-millennium talent like you enroll, this must be destined. The old fortune teller who read my palm when I was young wasn't lying after all. I'm destined to go down in history. Lufia's face darkened. It seemed she had to cut to the chase now. Lufia said solemnly and coldly, I'm sorry, headmaster. I want to cancel my enrollment application. The old headmaster was dumbfounded. His previous vitality instantly vanished, and he seemed to have aged several years in that moment. Watching Lufia turn to leave, the old headmaster hurriedly tried to stop her. Why are you treating me like this? Lufia explained, Actually, I suffer from severe migraines. They flare up whenever I use my brain or read books. The old headmaster, upon hearing this, still wouldn't give up. He told Lufia, if the princess would enroll in the academy, he could exempt her from all courses. He only asked that Lufia promise not to drop out midway. Although these conditions already met Lufia's desired goal, she still refused the old headmaster's offer, because making promises to others was what Lufia was most sensitive about. She had transmigrated and been reborn 54 times, living for 1,000 years. His understanding of this world's rules differed from that of normal people. Once he made a promise or agreement with someone, whether fulfilled or not, a mysterious force would compel his body to forcibly execute it. Lufia bid a soft farewell, then turned away resolutely, leaving the old headmaster alone in his sorrow. At this moment, the old headmaster's heart was already weeping profusely, but years of cultivated willpower told him not to cry out loud, lest it ruin his composure. As Lufia reached the door, she glimpsed the expression of the lonely old man behind her. What a pity, she thought. The old headmaster seemed to have dedicated his entire life to this academy. For her to just leave like this, he must be heartbroken. Lufia recalled her life as a teacher 200 years ago. Back then, when she was about to die of old age, she had left the position of headmaster to her most promising student. At that time, the student had grasped her hand, weeping profusely, and promised to make the academy flourish. Looking at it this way, the two of them were quite similar. Could the old headmaster be a descendant of her student? Glancing back at the old headmaster's desolate figure, it seemed too heartless to just leave like this. Lufia sighed and said, all right, I can enroll if you'd like, but you'll have to meet a few conditions. What do you say?" Hearing these words, the old headmaster's face instantly lit up, smiling like a 90-year-old child. To everyone's surprise, the adorable maid Mary turned out to be the biggest antagonist. Just now, Lufia had agreed in front of the old headmaster that she could enroll, but there were two conditions. First, if she had any unavoidable circumstances, she could drop out at any time. Second, the old headmaster had to keep her exam results confidential. The old headmaster was puzzled. But why? Your Highness has achieved the highest score in history. This should be something to be proud of. But Lufia's goal was to retire peacefully at the school. Becoming the focus of the academy would obviously bring unnecessary trouble. Lufia, as if coaxing a child, said, "Actually, I have a strange illness. It flares up whenever I receive too much attention." The old headmaster's face aged a few more years. In all his life, this was the first time he had been treated as if he were a fool, yet he was helpless and could only agree to Lufia's conditions. But this infuriated the maid Mary. Her mistress had scored first place, yet she couldn't boast about it to others. The more Mary thought about it, the angrier she became. She even started crying softly. After comforting Mary, Lufia heaved a long sigh of relief. Now that she had been admitted to the academy and the headmaster had agreed that she didn't need to attend classes, her leisurely retirement life could finally begin. Lufia instructed Mary, "Even if the sky falls down, or even if Red Tea comes to ask me out on a date, don't wake me up. I'm about to start my hibernation." Mary was stunned. "Miss, other students are busy socializing. Are you really planning to just lie here?" Lufia raised an eyebrow and said in a lazy voice, "Geniuses are always lonely." Mary felt ashamed of her mistress's slothful behavior and suddenly transformed into a vicious, supporting character. She shouted at Lufia, "Even geniuses need to make friends." As she spoke, she started tugging at Lufia's blanket. "Miss, you can't keep being so lethargic. The sunshine outside isn't harsh. The spring breeze is pleasant. You need to go make friends. You need to go fall in love." Lufia was speechless. She warned Mary, "There are so many single people watching this. Don't use sensitive words like falling in love." Mary explained to Lufia, "Miss, your fiancé, the fourth prince, is also at this school. The fourth prince is currently a fourth-year student and the president of the student council. You should go pursue sweet love." Lufia felt a sense of foreboding. Princes should stay in the palace. Why is he messing around outside? But I'm a runaway princess, so my family should cancel the engagement, right? And as long as I don't get out of bed, I believe that in these 4 years at school, she wouldn't even meet him at all. Thinking about this, Lufia felt it wasn't a big deal. No need to say much, no need to chatter. Today, even if the King of Heaven came, he couldn't stop me from sleeping. How blissful it is to be a little pig lying flat. The 1,000-year-old princess before her eyes was sleeping soundly for a whole day now. Even when the maid brought her food, she ate it in bed. On the second day, The maid couldn't stand it anymore. "Miss, you can't keep being such a sloth." But the princess before her eyes remained unmoved. On the third day, the maid finally understood. She could never wake up a pig pretending to sleep. It wasn't until the fourth day that Lufia lazily opened her eyes. However, the little maid before her seemed a bit angry. Lufia cautiously approached Mary, tilting her head to one side. Still pouting, she said, "As you said, miss, you're a genius. So you probably don't need someone like me around anymore, right?" Mary was indeed angry. Although Lufia had 1,000 ways to coax her, she chose the simplest and most direct one this time. "I'm going out to eat now, and it's your favorite steak. Consider if you want to come along." This trick worked wonders. Mary hugged Lufia's legs, crying and calling out, "Miss, you're so mean." Lufia instructed Mary to quickly get ready to go out. "I'm taking you for a feast right away." But Mary raised a serious issue. "Miss, we're out of money. We spent all our money on the day of enrollment." Lufia just remembered. The academy only provided food and lodging for herself. So how had Mary been getting by these past few days? Had she not been eating? Mary awkwardly replied, "I've been eating your leftovers these past few days. I haven't really gone hungry." Lufia felt extremely guilty at this moment. She had actually let this little lowly go hungry. Lufia seriously told Mary, "You know what? There's one thing I hate the most. That's letting those who follow me suffer. Don't worry, I'll definitely make it up to you double." The maid was touched. She was about to tell Lufia that just being able to stay with her was already very satisfying. But Lufia had already started rummaging through the wardrobe. She then took out an elegant black silk gown and said to Mary, "Come on, I'm taking you to make big money." Lufia's 54th rebirth had brought her into the body of a timid and weak duke's daughter. And right off the bat, she ran away from home with her maid to retire at school. The maid curiously asked Lufia, "Miss, why are you suddenly changing into such a glamorous and sexy black silk gown?" Lufia explained to her, "Aren't we going to make big money today? That's why we need to wear this." Mary was shocked. "Miss, you can't. No matter how broke we are, we can't resort to selling our bodies." Lufia used all her strength to give her a flick on the forehead. "You little thing, what on earth are you thinking about?" At this moment, a commotion broke out on campus. A commoner female student was covering her face and apologizing repeatedly. It looked like she had gotten into a conflict with a noble young lady. Having lived for 1,000 years, Lufia had long lost her passionate idealism. Nobles bullying commoners was the rule of this society. It's better to mind our own business and avoid trouble. But the innocent maid couldn't move on. She hoped that the young miss could lend a hand. Lufia explained to her that they would encounter such things often in the future. They couldn't possibly intervene every time. Mary didn't say anything more, but her eyes were filled with sadness. Being of common birth herself, she probably understood best the feeling of being bullied at will. The red-haired noble over there was still insulting that female student. She even demanded the female student to kneel down and kowtow to apologize. There were many onlooking students around, but not a single one stepped forward to stop it. Lufia glanced once more at Mary's crestfallen expression. Finally, Lufia decided to take action. She awakened memories from her previous lives as a female soccer player. With precision, she kicked a pebble on the ground, hitting the red-haired noble squarely on the head. The redhead was about to explode in anger, but immediately recognized who it was. It was the imperial princess. He could only suppress his fury. Still showing a hint of defiance, he said, "Oh, it's Princess. You must have accidentally kicked the pebble. I hope you didn't cut your foot. You should be more careful next time." Lufia coldly replied, "I'll be careful, but why don't you have any luggage?" Hearing this, the redhead quickly kowtowed and introduced his family name. But Lufia clearly had no intention of letting him off. She began to pick at his flaws. "Your bow isn't correct. The angle of your knee bend isn't low enough. Your left shoulder is also a bit crooked. Let's do this. Stand up and bow to me again." The redhead's face was filled with shock. "What's going on? Is this woman trying to make trouble for me?" Lufia elegantly said, "Don't misunderstand. I just noticed you haven't learned proper etiquette, so I want to teach you properly. Our empire's nobles studying abroad can embarrass our homeland out there." After countless torments, Lufia finally showed a satisfied smile. The redhead hastily fled in panic. Seeing such a cool princess, Mary once again turned into a fangirl. The female student nearby also expressed her gratitude to Lufia. Lufia coldly said, I didn't do it for you. I simply wanted to teach that arrogant woman a lesson. The female student gratefully burst into tears again. She knew the princess must have said that to prevent her from feeling indebted. She then told Lufia her name was Millie and that she would definitely repay the princess in the future. Lufia led Mary once again on the path to making big money. Little did she know that the scene that had just unfolded was clearly observed by two handsome men upstairs. The white-haired one looked at the black-haired one and said with interest, "Sister-in-law seems quite impressive indeed." The seemingly cold and handsome man before them was the Empire's fourth prince, also Lufia's previously betrothed fiancé. The fourth prince had imposing golden pupils, said to be eyes that only an emperor could possess. So although the right of succession should belong to the crown prince, people believed that in the end, it was still uncertain who would claim it. The white-haired man said sarcastically, "I've long heard that the duke's princess was a weakling. I wonder who spread such rumors. This is clearly a sister-in-law full of charm. Fourth brother, what do you think?" The fourth prince watched Lufia's almost vanished figure. He murmured, "How should I put it?" Making money was child's play for Lufia, who had been reborn 54 times. Today, Lufia, dressed in all black, transformed into the gambling god Chow Yun-Fat. Nothing brings in money faster than gambling. The maid Mary was 1,000 times unwilling. "Miss, this is a casino. Gambling is a bad thing. Let's leave quickly," Lufia asked with a serious face. "Mary, do I look like a bad person to you?" Mary still looked worried. "Miss, although you're not a bad person, gambling is genuinely a bad thing," Lufia told her with a radiant face. "I'm not just here to gamble. I'm here to uphold justice. As everyone knows, there are many cheaters in casinos. They use tricks to deceive others of their money, making others lose everything. Such people are truly bad. Today, I'm not just here to win money, but also to punish those bad people." The oppressive atmosphere of glittering lights and flowing wine before her eyes reminded Lufia once again of her days as a professional card shark in Las Vegas. Back then, she even had a resounding nickname, the god of gamblers, Chow Yun-Fat. Lufia pondered for a moment. With only 2 coins she had just picked up, she decided to start with the simplest and quickest way to make money, dice rolling. Although the maid strongly disapproved of gambling, as soon as the dice hit the ground, her excitement surpassed even Lufia's. She kept offering advice and strategies to Lufia. Watching them win money and shouting with joy, they were no different from those gamblers. After winning more than 10 rounds in a row, Lufia's 2 coins had turned into 250. Mary, lacking in intelligence and blinded by greed, urged her lady not to stop now. She insisted on playing a few more rounds while the luck was good. But Lufia wasn't satisfied with such small-scale gambling. These games were for those with limited chips. Even if she won all their money, it wouldn't amount to much. The real money was with those cheaters on the floor. Winning money from them would be truly satisfying. Lufia beckoned her maid to follow. Her small goal was to win 100 million first. Lufia began to wander around the casino. Nearby, she heard people's surprised exclamations. "My God, how did this person get 4 of kind?" Lufia glanced over. At the gambling table, a blond guy was smugly looking at his 4 aces. And, judging from his appearance, the man looked sleazy and shifty. He must be a cheater. At this moment, the blond guy also noticed the beautiful lady before him and invited Lufia to play around. Lufia didn't hesitate. She sat down directly. She'd start with this guy. However, she couldn't have imagined that this blond guy before her was actually her fiancé, the 4th prince's archenemy, and also the #1 candidate for the imperial throne succession, the crown prince. Today, the 1,000-year-old princess was not only the god of gamblers Chow Yun-Fat, but also an anti-gambling fraud ambassador. Lufia had already set her sights on a target. The blond guy in front of her must be someone who had won so much money by cheating. Lufia played a few small rounds with the blond guy. So far, his cheating techniques hadn't been exposed. However, by the 5th round, the blond guy finally slipped up. Lufia sensed the surge of magical energy, which surprised her. The blond guy must be using magic to swap cards in the deck and in his hand. Using magic to cheat was probably the most perfect card sharking technique. Although Lufia had drawn 5 cards of the same suit this round, she chose to fold. Now that she had figured out the blond guy's cheating method, there was no rush to win money at this moment. The blond guy was surprised to see Lufia discard such a good hand. He thought to himself, this lady must be a skilled player. The blonde guy became interested. It seemed he couldn't win much money from this woman in a short time. He asked Lufia, "Why don't we settle this with one decisive round? Whoever wins takes all the coins on the table." Lufia calmly said, "I only have 1,000 coins. But you have 3,000. Wouldn't you be at a disadvantage this way?" The blonde guy generously said it didn't matter. If the lady wanted to be fair, he had a proposal. "If I win, how about you accompany me on a date for a day?" Lufia was shocked by this brazen and impolite blonde guy. You think you can buy my entire day with a mere 2,000 coins? Even for 200 million, I wouldn't give it a second glance. You're severely underestimating my worth." The blonde guy realized he had misspoken and hurriedly apologized to Lufia. "I'm sorry, miss. It was a slip of the tongue. I merely intended to invite you for tea." Seeing the blonde's sincere apology, Lufia decided to forgive him. Having tea wasn't a big deal, and besides, she was certain she wouldn't lose. The final round began. The dealer revealed the first 3 cards for the blonde guy. These 3 sevens surprised everyone, while Lufia's cards also shocked the audience. She only had 3 twos. Lufia began to speculate. The blonde would likely use magic to get another 7. Even if she managed to get 4 twos, it wouldn't beat his 7s. The blonde had no idea that her skills were far beyond what he could imagine. As the blonde drew a card from his hand, forming 4 sevens, he started to smirk smugly. Lufia gave a cold smile, but she pushed aside her 3 twos. She laid her hand flat on the table. The cards before her, from 10 to ace, formed the highest straight flush. Lufia smirked coldly. "Oh." The dealer pushed the pile of coins towards Lufia. Maid Mary looked utterly astonished. Lufia smiled triumphantly. In fact, she had intentionally let the blonde get those 3 sevens. It was to make him lower his guard, with the blonde monopolizing the 7s. The chances of Lufia getting a straight flush were almost 0. Little did he know, there are always bigger fish. Lufia's title as the gambling god in her previous lives wasn't for nothing. The spendthrift before her had just lost all his money to the gambling god Lufia. Yet he merely smiled, expressing his hope to see the young lady again. Lufia had indeed kept her word. In just 2 hours, she had won a sack full of coins. Then she treated her maid to a lavish meal. Maid Mary kept checking the sack. She had never seen so much money in her life. Lufia teasingly warned her, flaunting wealth in front of others might attract thieves. Mary quickly clutched the bag tightly. Perhaps because of winning money from the blonde guy, Mary asked Lufia with a blushing face, "Who was that man we won money from earlier? He was so handsome." Lufia pondered. At the gambling table, just before leaving, the blonde had given her a meaningful look. Lufia was certain. The blonde must have discovered the trick she used, but he didn't say anything. Moreover, not only was the blonde handsome, but he was also skilled in magic. Those who could use magic so proficiently in the Empire numbered only about 20, but most of them were old geezers. That blonde was clearly young. Lufia suddenly remembered that the Empire's crown prince was a rising star among magicians. Lufia felt a bit worried. It seemed she had provoked another troublesome figure. Having earned so much money, mere eating, drinking, and entertainment weren't enough. Lufia took Mary to a dress shop again. However, Lufia didn't start picking out new clothes. Having lived for 1,000 years, she was no longer interested in things that only 20 or 30-year-old girls would fancy. After all, she was beautiful. Even if she wrapped herself in a tattered cloth, she would still look stunning. Lufia pushed Mary in front of the shop assistant and asked them to pick out new clothes for Mary. Mary was overwhelmed with gratitude. "My lady, you can't. The clothes here are too expensive." But Lufia's attitude was firm. "I'm not buying you clothes for your sake, but because you must look beautiful when you're with me. You can't embarrass me, understand? Besides, you're the closest person to me." Mary was touched by the princess's words. "My lady, you're too kind." The maid changed into a fresh and cute dress, looking like an innocent and adorable girl next door. Although she seemed uncomfortable, Mary was secretly overjoyed. With 53 lifetimes of experience, Lufia understood well that one should seize the day. Money was just a material possession that couldn't be taken away. The most precious thing in the world was the radiant smile of those who loved you. However, Lufia had another thought. Buying so many things for Mary meant she would need a lot of time to organize them, which meant she wouldn't disturb Lufia's sleep. Now that she had earned enough money, nothing could stop her from hibernating. But good times didn't last long. Just as Lufia lay down, there came an urgent knock at the door. To her great surprise, In the middle of the night, Lufia's fiancé, the fourth prince, had found his way here. The spendthrift before her had lost all his money to the gambling goddess Lufia, but he only smiled slightly, expressing his hope to see the lady again next time. Lufia had indeed kept her word, earning a bag of coins in just 2 short hours. Then she treated her maid to a feast. The maid Mary kept checking the bag. She had never seen so much money in her life. Lufia teased her with interest. Exposing wealth in front of others might attract thieves. Little Mary quickly clutched the bag tightly. Perhaps it was because of winning money from the blonde guy, but Mary asked Lufia shyly, "My lady, who was that man who lost the money earlier? He was so handsome." Lufia pondered. When leaving the gambling table earlier, the blonde guy had given her a meaningful look. Lufia was certain that he had discovered the trick she used. However, he didn't say anything about it. Moreover, not only was the blonde guy handsome, but he was also skilled in magic. To be so proficient in magic, there were probably only about 20 people in the empire. Most of them were old geezers, but that blonde guy was clearly young. Lufia suddenly remembered that the empire's crown prince was a rising star among magicians. Lufia felt a bit worried. It seemed she had offended another troublesome figure. Having earned so much money, just eating, drinking, and having fun wasn't enough. Lufia took Mary to the dress shop again. However, Lufia didn't start picking out new clothes. Having earned so much money, just eating and drinking wasn't enough. Lufia took Mary to the dress shop again. However, Lufia didn't start picking out new clothes for herself. Having lived for 1,000 years, she was no longer interested in things that only 20 or 30-year-old girls would fancy. After all, she was beautiful. Even if she wrapped herself in a tattered cloth, she would still look stunning. Lufia pushed Mary in front of the shop assistant and asked him to pick out new clothes for Mary. Mary was overwhelmed with gratitude. "My lady, you can't. The clothes here are too expensive." But Lufia's attitude was firm. "I'm not buying you clothes for your sake, but because you must look beautiful when you're with me. You can't embarrass me, understand? Besides, you're the closest person to me." Mary was touched by the princess's words. "My lady, you're too kind." The maid changed into a fresh and cute dress, looking like an innocent and adorable girl next door. Though she looked uncomfortable, Mary's heart was blooming with joy. Lufia, with her 53 lifetimes of experience, understood well. Seize the day, for money is but an external possession that can never be taken with you. The most precious thing in this world is the radiant smile of those who love you. However, Lufia had another thought. Buying so many things for Mary would require her to spend a lot of time organizing them, which means she wouldn't disturb Lufia's sleep. Now that she had earned enough money, nothing could stop her from hibernating. But good times didn't last long. Just as Lufia lay down, there came an urgent knock at the door. To her utter surprise, in the middle of the night, Lufia's fiancé, the fourth prince, had found his way here. My goodness, the handsome fourth prince was being so romantic. Lufia had won a lot of money during the day and was preparing to continue her hibernation. But in the dead of night, the fourth prince had come knocking. Although they had long been betrothed by their families, this was their first encounter. Lufia sensed trouble. She had thought that by hiding in her room, no one would disturb her retirement. She hadn't expected to still have to face this guy. After exchanging pleasantries, the fourth prince got straight to the point. He took out a prepared letter and began to read. Upon receiving a report, Princess Lufia, you went to the casino during the day and participated in high-stakes gambling. As the student council president, I've come to inform you that you've seriously violated school rules. Due to the severity of your actions, please report to the Academy Court tomorrow to receive your punishment. Having said this, the fourth prince left without looking back, closing the door behind him. The maid was quite worried. "Miss, they won't confiscate the money we won, will they?" But Lufia remained calm. Sleeping was still the priority. Punishment might not necessarily be a bad thing. But come to think of it, who could have reported this? The next day, Lufia went to the Academy Court as promised. The fourth prince handed down her punishment. Considering that the princess is a new student, and this is her first offense, let's have her clean the school for a week. Lufia, upon hearing this, immediately objected. She stated that although she was an imperial princess, if she had made a mistake, she should receive the appropriate punishment. According to school rules, she should be confined or suspended. The fourth prince smiled slightly. I didn't expect the princess to be such a principled woman. The fourth prince gazed at Lufia with his golden, shimmering imperial eyes. He was likely trying to use his eyes' special ability to see through Lufia's true intentions. However, despite his eyes being able to peer into people's hearts, they had no effect on Lufia. Lufia continued seriously. Please, Your Highness, deal with me strictly according to school rules. The fourth prince tried to persuade her. You're a new student. I still feel it's too severe to give such a heavy punishment right after you've enrolled. Lufia retorted, Your Highness, is it because I'm your fiancé that you're thinking of going easy on me? The fourth prince was honest and directly admitted to this. But Lufia, oblivious to the romantic gesture, continued to press the prince with a firm attitude. Please don't pull strings for me, Your Highness. Our every action will be an example for other students to learn from. I implore you to give me the heaviest punishment. The fourth prince was at a loss for words. Fine then, you're suspended for 5 days. Upon hearing this, Lufia dashed out, thinking to herself, hee, I can play outside for 5 days. Today, the 1,000-year-old princess was very dejected, because the crown prince had just confessed his feelings to her. Moreover, he showed great interest in Lufia. Lufia was very troubled. Her peaceful retirement life, although it hadn't been disturbed by the fourth prince, this crown prince seemed even more difficult to deal with. However, today's Lufia was not an emotional woman troubled by love, but a gallant female knight upholding justice. Lufia returned to the academy with a troubled expression. On the way, she encountered 2 students bullying a redhead. The 2 students were intimidating the redhead with arrogant words. Then they forcefully shoved the broom in their hands to him. It looked like they wanted the redhead to clean in their place. Lufia, who was already in a bad mood, shouted loudly at the 2 students who bullied the weak. The 2 saw that the newcomer was the imperial princess. They quickly stood at attention, bowed, and paid their respects. Lufia ignored them and walked up to the redhead. She seriously told the redhead, they are clearly bullying you. Why don't you dare to resist? If you think enduring for a moment will make everything calm down, you're wrong. This will only lead to them becoming more aggressive. If you need help, just say it. I can lend you a hand. But after a long time passed, the timid redhead still couldn't muster a single word. Lufia was disappointed too. She had meddled for nothing. The 2 students became even more aggressive. They even loudly mocked the redhead for being a coward, saying, Princess, it's not worth standing up for someone like him. However, Lufia had no intention of just walking away. Even if she wasn't standing up for the redhead, she still had to teach these 2 arrogant guys a lesson. Lufia kicked the dirty water bucket on the ground hard into the green-haired guy's face. Then she looked at the green-haired guy with disdain. Since you like to solve problems with force, then have a duel with me. I'll fight on behalf of this redhead. The loser will be responsible for cleaning. And the reason I'm helping him is simple. I just find your faces unpleasant to look at. Upon hearing this, the 2 were shocked. The green-haired guy was quite displeased. I advise you to stop here, Your Highness. Even if you're a princess, you can't insult our knightly honor like this. But Lufia looked very serious. I'm not joking with you. The spirit of a knight shouldn't be to act like a coward, right? Hurry up and take up your sword. Let's have a match. After saying this, Lufia picked up the nearby broom. She even stated that she would only use this to beat him to a pulp. The green-haired guy trembled with anger. Princess, you've really insulted me this time. Having said that, he charged forward with his great sword, faced with a fierce attack. Lufia just lightly dodged it. Although Lufia's current body was frail, the memory of being a swordmaster in the past was not to be trifled with. Facing the green-haired guy's attacks one after another, Lufia could always easily deflect and precisely counterattack. But the green-haired guy's head was hard. Lufia's hand, holding the broom, was getting numb from hitting. With the broom in hand, Lufia had an aura of one man guarding a pass that 10,000 couldn't break through. She even didn't forget to mock the yellow-haired guy on the side. Finally, the yellow-haired guy couldn't stand it anymore. He joined forces with the green-haired guy to launch an attack on Lufia. After a few rounds, the 2 were still being ground into the dirt. Although Lufia's swordsmanship was invincible, this body of hers was really holding her back. The green-haired man swung his long sword and attacked again. Lufia realized her legs no longer had the strength to dodge. At this critical moment, the cowardly redhead finally stepped up. Lufia had heroically come to the redhead's rescue, standing up for him after he was bullied. But the timid redhead didn't dare to make a sound. He hid to the side, watching Lufia fight fiercely with the 2 knights. Seeing Lufia in danger, the redhead finally drew his sword and stepped forward. Seeing the timid redhead who had always been bullied actually dare to resist, the 2 knights' anger levels exploded. They immediately engaged in combat with the redhead. But the redhead's strength seemed to be very powerful. At least in a one-on-one fight, he would definitely win. However, The two knights had already consumed a lot of energy earlier. Before long, they were knocked down by the redhead. As the battle ended, Lufia didn't kick the two knights while they were down. Instead, she began to bandage their wounds. She also lectured the two of them. As knights, you always talk about chivalry. But is chivalry meant for you to bully others? I hope you'll reflect on your actions in the future. At this moment, the young redhead boy thanked Lufia. His adorable, gentle appearance made Lufia mistake him for a little deer. The knight told Lufia with a serious face, "Princess, you risked danger for my sake. I will definitely repay you in the future." Lufia was most afraid of hearing such words now. "If you're not just saying that to comfort me, then agree to one condition for me. You look so strong, yet you're too timid. I hope that from now on, you can stand tall and bravely fight back against those who try to bully you. If you continue to live so meekly, when you're old, you'll find your life full of regrets." Encouraged by Lufia, the redhead cried his eyes out. He promised Lufia that he would definitely live bravely in the future. Lufia stretched lazily. The sky had already darkened. Now it was time for eating and sleeping. Lufia headed towards the night market, unaware that everything that had just happened had been witnessed by the fourth prince. Lufia led her maid Mary to raise their glasses and drink heartily. After downing a large mug of beer, she felt refreshed. This beer was really invigorating. Just as they were enjoying themselves, the two knights who had been taught a lesson by Lufia earlier actually came over with beers, asking to join their table. The maid was a bit worried about her mistress. "These two look strange. They're not bad people, are they?" The two knights put a large fried chicken on the table and said they would treat for today. Mary, with her naive and easily fooled expression, exclaimed, "Oh, miss, it turns out they're good people." After who knows how many drinks, Lufia really couldn't drink anymore and had to surrender in defeat. Lufia was already a bit tipsy. This body's alcohol tolerance was really too poor. Looking at the young couples singing and dancing on the street, and the knights who had fought fiercely with her during the day, but now were letting bygones be bygones. Everywhere was filled with the flavor of youth and vitality. Lufia began to waver in her determination. Youth is precious. Should she really just grow old like this? Should she really not have another passionate romance? However, a momentary excitement could never compare to the comfort of a large bed. Lufia returned to her dormitory. The moment she lay down on the bed, she realized that youth and silly notions of love were nothing compared to the sweetness of her own bed. Just as Lufia was about to drift off to sleep, Mary woke her up. "Miss, there's a ball invitation for you." The 1,000-year-old princess, who only wanted to lie flat and enjoy her retirement, received the invitation. The sender was inviting Lufia to a tea party. Now came the moment to test her skills. How to politely decline the invitation without being rude. First step, throw the invitation into the trash can. And that was it. Lufia was already back in bed, snoring away. After sleeping for who knows how long, the little piggy's first instinct upon waking was to eat. Seeing her mistress's lack of motivation, the maid Mary reminded her, "Are you really not going to attend that tea party, miss? The person who invited you is called Sophie. She's also the daughter of an imperial duke. I've heard that Sophie is beautiful, excels in her studies, and has a very kind personality. Many noble young ladies have already chosen to follow Sophie. She's already built her own little circle of influence while you're still lying in bed." Lufia looked annoyed. "Oh, all right. In the future, just tell everyone that I'm not in good health and can't participate in activities. Don't be fooled by my hearty appetite and sound sleep. I'm actually a delicate young lady." Mary then produced another admission ticket. "Then, miss, you'll at least attend the social evening organized by the academy tomorrow, right?" Lufia played dumb. "What are you talking about? Something about bananas being expensive?" Mary was at a loss for words. How did she end up with such a lazy mistress? Just then, there was a knock at the door. A maid introduced herself as Sophie's attendant and handed Lufia another tea party invitation. Lufia felt annoyed. How tiresome. Why are there people who keep inviting others like this? Lufia impatiently told the maid to go back and relay that she was unwell and couldn't attend. But upon hearing this, the maid fell to her knees in fright. Then, with tears in her eyes, she said, "Please, Princess Lufia, don't refuse yet. Please reconsider." Lufia understood. She asked the maid, "Did your Miss Sophie tell you that if I don't attend, she'll punish you?" Hearing this, the maid cried even louder, clearly confirming Lufia's words. Having lived for 1,000 years in this world, Lufia despised people who acted one way in public and another in private. She asked Mary, "Didn't you say that Princess Sophie was a kind-hearted woman Mary stammered, "Well, I only heard it from others." Lufia didn't want to make things difficult for the maid before her, so she reluctantly agreed. Looking at the invitation in her hand, Lufia realized she hated the scheming and plotting among noble ladies the most. But since that little one insisted on her accepting this challenge, she might as well play along. The 1,000-year-old princess just wanted to rest, not socialize. However, the other party insisted on forcefully inviting Lufia to the tea party. Lufia changed into a formal dress to attend the event. Though still beautiful, her maid Mary was a bit worried. "Miss, this dress is too plain." But Lufia didn't care. She didn't want to be the center of attention at the party. As soon as she arrived at Sophie's house, Sophie politely welcomed Lufia. She expressed how delighted she was to have Princess Lufia attend. However, Lufia knew that the more friendly people appeared on the surface, the more sinister their intentions could be. Sure enough, Sophie arranged a table for Lufia, but it was completely empty. Sophie lied, saying that the young ladies who were supposed to sit with Lufia had all fallen ill and couldn't attend. She asked Lufia to sit and wait, saying that perhaps some ladies might join her later. In a noisy living room, the young ladies were all chatting and laughing. Only Lufia sat alone at a table, ignored in a corner. Most of the noble ladies were busy flattering Sophie, and not a single one came over to Lufia. Lufia knew. It seemed Sophie was only targeting her. She must have seen Lufia as her #1 enemy. After all, in this academy, only Lufia could threaten her position. If she didn't understand human nature clearly, Sophie's show of force today, if left unchallenged, would make things even more difficult in the future. It's troublesome indeed. Lufia kicked over the table with one foot, feigning surprise. "Oh my, how did this table fall on its own? Could it be defective? Looks like I'll have to find a new seat. Hey, pink hair, you're here too?" The pink-haired boy was about to flare up. "Don't you dare sit next to me." But his little foot was already painfully pinned under the chair Lufia had brought over. The pink-haired boy endured the pain without crying out, only silently acquiescing. Lufia sat down. Looking at the cream cake on the pink-haired boy's table, she mocked. "Oh my, isn't this style of cream cake quite unpalatable? Could it be that Princess Sophie serves such trash to her guests?" Sophie's expression had already soured. She had an ominous premonition. Lufia held the plate with the cake in one hand and forcefully pulled the tablecloth with the other. The food on the table fell to the ground, creating a mess. Lufia feigned innocence. "Oh, I didn't mean to do that." Sophie shouted at her. "Princess Lufia, how can you be so rude?" Before she could finish speaking, a piece of cake grazed past Sophie's hair. The atmosphere in the room froze. Somehow, Lufia had another piece of cake in her hand. She approached Sophie step by step. "Miss Sophie, I didn't mean to throw the cake at you. I just wanted to help you get rid of these unpalatable things. Now I have another piece of bad cake in my hand. Would you like to find a quiet place to discuss how we should dispose of these things?" Sophie was frightened. She felt that Lufia might smash this dark, messy cake on her head at any moment. Today, Princess Lufia was very domineering. Having been insulted by Sophie at the banquet, she now held Sophie hostage with a piece of cake. Sophie was still arrogant, warning Lufia that she would definitely not let her off. Lufia smiled slightly, flashing the cake in her hand, indicating that she could smash the cake on Sophie's head at any time. Lufia looked at her coldly. "I don't think I've ever offended you, Miss Sophie. Why are you trying so hard to insult me? I heard that when your father learned you were admitted to this academy, he immediately bought you such a luxurious mansion near the school. You grew up in an excellent family, with everyone's expectations on you. I didn't expect your behavior to be so despicable." Sophie trembled all over from Lufia's words. Gritting her teeth, she said, "I will definitely make you regret your actions today." Lufia's face was full of disdain. "Oh, I like to see what you can do to me," Sophie slowly said in a cold voice. "First, I'll make sure you can never set foot in the Academy's social circles again." Lufia was surprised upon hearing this. This woman turned out to be an ally. She had been worrying about how to distance herself from social circles to live a peaceful life, and now someone was helping her. Seeing Lufia's face full of smiles, Sophie felt she was being looked down upon. "You think I can't do it with my methods?" Lufia was already overjoyed inside. "Since you've said such things, you must keep your word. No going back on it, okay?" Sophie was furious. Pointing at Lufia's nose, she scolded harshly. "Don't think I'm joking. I swear I'll have you excluded from the social circle." Lufia was even more delighted now. "Great, great. That's exactly what I want." Lufia gently patted Sophie's shoulder. "From now on, you can be your social queen, and I'll just sleep soundly in my home. We won't interfere with each other." Sophie was completely bewildered. What was going on? Lufia continued. But don't think I'm afraid of you. I'm just really not interested in the social circle at all. And if I really wanted to fight with you, you'd probably already be ruined. As far as I know, Anna, Peggy, Albie, and more than a dozen other noble ladies. Some families went bankrupt, some faces are disfigured, and even Miss Ailing who just passed away. These people all suffered your revenge because they offended you, right? Sophie was shocked after hearing this. What nonsense are you talking about? Lufia smiled confidently. If I didn't have some substantial evidence, I wouldn't say such things. Seeing Sophie's bewildered expression, Lufia sighed. It seemed that the intelligence about Sophie she bought from the black market was worth those 4,000 steel coins after all. Lufia, seeing her goal achieved, waved goodbye to Sophie casually. She left with a parting remark. Don't worry, I'll keep your secret, but only if you keep your promise and don't make me step into the social circle again. Now comes the choice. On one side is the charming but slightly mischievous crown prince. On the other side is the cold and handsome fourth prince with the eyes of an emperor. Which one would you choose? Today, the 1,000-year-old princess received an invitation to the Academy's new student welcome party. But Lufia, being carefree as always, told her maid to throw the invitation in the trash. Lufia instructed Mary, just tell others that I'm sick again and can't attend. Fame truly brings trouble. Another knock came at Lufia's door. Mary cautiously opened it to find a handsome knight standing outside. The knight immediately said he was here to see Princess Lufia. Lufia noticed the emblem on the knight's chest. It was the exclusive emblem of the Imperial Knight Order. This guy must be a subordinate of either the fourth prince or the crown prince. Lufia quietly told Mary to lie, saying she wasn't home. Mary did as told. Our Lady says she's not home. Seeing that the ruse wouldn't work, Lufia reluctantly came out to face the knight. Upon seeing the princess, the knight quickly bowed and said he was sent by the crown prince to deliver a gift. He then presented a gorgeous and sexy red gown. The knight reported, My crown prince asked me to tell you that he hopes you will wear this gown to the Academy's new student welcome party. Mary was mesmerized by the gown, unable to take her eyes off it. But Lufia was already thoroughly annoyed. She replied to the knight, Please take this gift back. I appreciate the crown prince's kindness, but I'm not feeling well and can't attend the welcome party for now. Lufia coughed twice with poor acting skills. Please go back, knight. Remember to take the gift with you. The atmosphere became awkward. The two knights were at a loss. So they quickly took out a letter and handed it to Lufia, saying it was from the crown prince. Then they left the gown and ran off in a hurry. Lufia opened the envelope and looked. It clearly stated, Don't use illness as an excuse. At the banquet that day, Lufia was speechless. This guy had actually predicted her moves. The maid was admiring the gorgeous gown, unable to let it go. Lufia, however, was deeply worried. Generally, when a man give a woman a gown before a banquet, it's a form of courtship. Lufia recalled the crown prince telling her that day that he liked her. Could it be that guy wasn't joking? No, it's well known that the crown prince is an ambitious and cunning old fox, solely focused on competing with the fourth prince for the throne. At such a crucial time, to court a girl he had just met, this guy must be brewing some kind of scheme. Thinking of this, Lufia felt no guilt about her next course of action. Lufia leisurely walked to her bed and instructed Mary to throw the crown prince's letter in the trash. As for the gown, find a place to burn it and remember to sprinkle some cumin on it. Mary advised her mistress that this couldn't be thrown away. It might be the first step in her romantic love story with the crown prince. Lufia saw right through Mary's little thoughts. I think you just feel the gown is too expensive to throw away, Lufia said. Mary again tried to persuade her mistress, saying it would indeed be a shame to throw it away, and it was also the crown prince's sincere gesture. Don't you think the crown prince is quite nice? Mary continued, and look at that fourth prince. He's supposed to be your fiancé, yet he ignores you completely at the academy. Mary got increasingly agitated as she spoke, directly calling the fourth prince an idiot who didn't know how to care for such a beautiful and kind lady as Lufia. If not for thinking to herself, please stop talking, it would be even more troublesome if the fourth prince came to care for me too, Lufia might have responded. But it was as if Mary's words were prophetic, for at that moment, there was another knock at the door. The attendant at the door claimed he was sent by the fourth prince to deliver a gift. He then presented an even more magnificent gown. Mary's face changed rapidly. This is so beautiful. I knew Our Lady's taste wouldn't be wrong. The fourth prince is truly excellent. The charming and roguish crown prince and the handsome and aloof fourth prince had both sent gifts at the same time. Yet the 1,000-year-old Princess Lufia wore a face full of worry. She didn't want to be a victim in the dispute between these two kids. She then instructed the maid to take the gowns outside to burn them, remembering to sprinkle some green onions and cumin. Mary, as if gone mad, protected the two gowns. "Miss, you can't burn them. These are precious gowns sent by the royal family." Hearing this, Lufia gave a mischievous smile. Indeed, these gowns do look quite expensive. Lufia took Mary to a clothing store and sold the gowns for 4,000 steel coins. Until the moment they received the money, the maid was still worried for Lufia. The romantic love story between her mistress and the two princes had just been sold away. However, when Lufia used this money to treat Mary to steak, Mary couldn't help but exclaim, "This is delicious. Miss is truly a genius." When dealing with men, one must play hard to get. You can't let them capture your heart so easily. As the well-fed mistress and maid were on their way back, they were stopped by the adorable little deer that Lufia had saved before. The little deer happily greeted Lufia. It seemed that its whole demeanor was much more confident than before. The little deer frankly said it had come to thank Princess Lufia. Although Lufia wanted to say something like there's no need for that, for some reason, seeing the little deer's admiring gaze, she just couldn't open her mouth. Lufia sighed, "I just help you out on a whim, that's all." The little deer replied, "Although I know the princess just helped me casually, it was thanks to you that I was able to come to my senses. So, I must give you a thank you gift." Looking at the shape of the object behind the little deer, Lufia felt it looked oddly familiar. The little deer continued speaking. "Due to my upbringing, I've always lived in fear and avoidance. But until that day, when I met the princess, the way she protected me behind her made me feel ashamed. I look back on my life and realized how cowardly I'd been. It was because of you that I understood the value of courage. So I agonized for a long time, not knowing what gift to give. But from the mockery of some bad people, I learned that the princess, despite being frail and sickly, had defied the Duke's orders due to her lofty ideals and entered this academy alone. This increased my admiration for you once again. I know that although you have a noble status, you've lost the financial support of your family." The redhead became more excited as he spoke. "Those bad people mocked you, saying you no longer had money to buy a gown for the student welcome party. I know better than anyone that your highness has a beautiful heart, so I can't tolerate others mocking you. So I prepared a gown for you. Although I know it's not worthy of a princess's status, it would be my great honor if you could accept it." The 1,000-year-old princess only wanted to lie down and sleep in this life, not attend parties. However, in just 2 short hours, she had received party gowns from 3 people. But the ones sent by the crown prince and the 4th prince had already been sold by Lufia. Looking at the floral cheongsam given by the little deer, Lufia felt a bit reluctant to part with it. Not because it looked expensive, but because the little deer didn't seem to come from a noble background. It's possible that the money for the gown was saved up for a long time, and he had no other intentions in giving the gift. It was just to thank her, and because he heard about her financial difficulties. Speaking of financial difficulties, Lufia first thought of the rumors spread by Sophie and the pink-haired boy. At this moment, Mary fanned the flames beside her. "Miss, if you wear this beautiful gown to the party, you'll surely slap those women in the face." Lufia sighed. Another day of being forced to socialize. She couldn't even rest on Women's Day. Then she instructed Mary not to eat lunch, saving their appetites for the feast at the evening party. In the evening, Princess Sophie arrived at the party wearing an elegant solid-color gown. Her sexy and cute aura outshone all the other beauties. The pink-haired girl and other noble ladies quickly started flattering her. They praised Sophie's charming muscles, saying even her farts probably smelled like strawberries. After the flattery, to please Sophie, the group of noble ladies started bad-mouthing Lufia. They said things like Lufia's mother was a commoner of low birth, or that Lufia probably wouldn't have the face to come to the party, and even if she did, no one would pay attention to her. Such talk filled the ballroom. Sophie then started to put on an act. "Oh, please don't talk about her anymore. After all, we're more cultured than her. We should learn to tolerate her vulgarity." The pink-haired girl once again laid on the flattery thick. Princess Sophie is not only beautiful and kind-hearted, but also so broad-minded. At this moment, another noble lady wanting to please Sophie, said, "I heard that Princess Lufia didn't do well in the entrance exam at all. The results of other students were made public, but hers was missing. It said that she used some kind of charm spell to bewitch our principal. That's how she got into the academy." Sophie again put on a fake concerned look. "Although I also think Princess Lufia doesn't have the ability to enter the academy. This matter isn't confirmed yet, so let's not believe it for now. On the contrary, I'm quite worried about Princess Lufia today." The pink-haired girl played along. "What are you worried about regarding that woman?" Sophie said with a mocking smile, "I heard that Princess Lufia has been abandoned by Duke Listen. Now she has no source of funding. I wonder if Lufia even has money to buy a dress. She won't be wearing that tattered, maid-like outfit from last time, will she?" At these words, the ladies burst into laughter. However, it's often when villains are at their most smug that they're about to be slapped in the face. Sophie stared in disbelief at the woman who entered the ballroom. Lufia, wearing a sky-blue floral dress, gracefully walked into the hall. Concepts like sexy and cute were now worthless. The woman before them perfectly embodied the idea that innocence is supreme. Today, the millennial princess finally stopped being a slacker and attended the party. The maid Mary was overjoyed. She had meticulously applied makeup worth 3,000 steel coins for Lufia. Lufia's stunning beauty, combined with the exquisite makeup and the pure yet alluring sky-blue dress, captured the hearts of all men as soon as she entered the ballroom. Those minor characters who had been gossiping about Lufia behind her back, though unwilling to admit she was more beautiful than them, betrayed their true feelings with their expressions. Today, the millennial princess had only one task: to successfully enter the ballroom and enjoy the food. Just as Lufia walked through the ballroom doors, she was intercepted by contestant number 1. The green-haired man before her was the ill-mannered knight who had bullied the little deer last time. The green-haired man, with a shy face, requested to share a dance with Princess Lufia. Lufia teasingly asked him, "Why are you suddenly inviting me to dance? You haven't fallen for me, have you?" Hearing this, the green-haired man's face instantly turned red. Lufia didn't want to break this pure-hearted young man's heart. It wouldn't hurt to dance with him for a bit. However, the green-haired man's dancing skills were terrible. Lufia felt like she was dancing with a zombie. Fortunately, Lufia's dancing skills were profound. She managed to lead the green-haired man through one dance. By now, the observing green tea bitches had started to criticize that Lufia's looks are useless. Inner beauty is what's most important. Look at how ungraceful her dancing appears. As the dance ended, the green-haired man completed his task. Lufia had barely taken a step forward when contestant number 2, the little deer, blocked her path. Faced with the little deer's gentlemanly request, Lufia naturally couldn't refuse. The little deer indeed lived up to his elegant appearance. His dance steps surprised Lufia. In her 1,000 years in this world, Lufia had danced countless times with men, but the little deer gave her a sense of amazement. The little deer was also marveling at Lufia's dance steps. She was the best dance partner he had ever encountered. The little deer's face turned slightly red. "I had originally intended to dance the first dance with the princess today, but that green-haired guy beat me to it. Will I have another chance to dance with the princess in the future?" Lufia agreed without a second thought. After all, he was one of the few dance partners she had met who could satisfy her, although she might not attend any more parties in the future. At this moment, the noble ladies in the hall were mesmerized by their graceful dance, praising how elegant the two looked together. Meanwhile, the green tea bitches didn't know how to criticize anymore and could only change their approach. Look at that woman, a princess, yet only commoner knights invite her to dance. And she happily agreed. What a vulgar person indeed. I bet the next one to invite her to dance will be a commoner too. As the dance ended, the little deer bowed gracefully to Lufia. Lufia took another step towards the inner part of the ballroom. At this moment, contestant number 3 made his appearance. It was none other than the dashing and handsome crown prince. Today, the 1,000-year-old princess had, for once, attended a party, but all she wanted was to quietly enjoy a free meal. Unexpectedly, as soon as she entered the ballroom, she received dance invitations from 2 knights. At this point, contestant number 3 also made his entrance. The crown prince sincerely invited Lufia to dance. The onlooking green tea bitches were stunned. This was the man of their dreams. But it was this very man who was rejected by Lufia with a look of disdain. Lufia knew that the crown prince and the 4th prince had long been secretly vying for the throne. The man before her was very likely just using her as a pawn to gain benefits. She didn't want to be dragged into their political games. Lufia haughtily refused, stating, "Crown Prince, it seems you lack sufficient charm to attract me." The Crown Prince laughed heartily. In this world, there was actually a woman who dared to say such words to him. But the more she resisted, the more he didn't want to give up. Lufia was no pushover either. Hearing this, she turned to leave, thinking, "You can't force me to dance with you, can you?" Just then, the Crown Prince's voice came from behind. "I heard you sold the gown I gifted you. You should know, selling gift from the royal family without permission is a serious crime." Lufia was thunderstruck upon hearing this. She had been discovered by this guy. She glared at the Crown Prince. "If you speak like that, you'll become even less charming in my eyes." The thick-skinned Crown Prince expressed his indifference. "Anyway, my charm value in the princess's heart is already negative. Why fear making it worse?" The Crown Prince once again extended a dance invitation to Lufia. Unlike the previous two contestants, who willingly let Lufia lead the dance, today's contestant number 3 left Lufia quite dissatisfied. Lufia took the Crown Prince's arm, seemingly dancing. But in reality, her feet below were already engaged in a battle of wits with the Crown Prince. But no matter how Lufia tried to step on him, she just couldn't hit the man's shoes. Elegant music accompanied by swaying wine glasses, holding a peerless beauty in his arms as they danced gracefully. The only flaw was that the beauty's heart didn't belong to him. The Crown Prince stirred up emotions. "Do you dislike me that much? If you could get to know me better, you'd realize I'm actually quite a good man." Lufia didn't hesitate. She replied directly, "I could never like you, and I hate people who act one way in public and another in private." The Crown Prince clarified, "You may see me as dazzling in public, but I'm just as handsome in private, you know." Lufia looked at him seriously. "Then let me ask you this. If my Duke father wasn't the 4th Prince's backer, would you still be interested in me?" The Crown Prince finally understood. So this was why Lufia didn't like him. As the dance ended, Lufia curtsied to bid farewell to the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince's expression turned serious as he asked Lufia, "If one day you discover that my feelings for you are genuine, without any ulterior motives, would you accept me then?" Lufia once again firmly and decisively rejected him. "Even if your feelings are genuine, my answer would be the same as it is now." But seeing the sincerity on the man's face before her, Lufia felt a twinge of guilt in her heart. She explained, "I'm not specifically targeting you. It's just that I don't want to be entangled with anyone right now. Today, this 1,000-year-old princess just wants to enjoy a free meal at the party." As a result, from the entrance of the banquet hall to the table with food, a mere 20-meter distance, it took her a full 40 minutes to traverse. Especially the heartfelt confession from contestant number 3 made Lufia feel a bit uncomfortable. She just wanted to have a meal at the banquet. Why did it have to be so difficult? She looked around for her teammate Mary. That girl had already started feasting on her own. Lufia successfully made it through and found a place to sit down. Just as she was about to take a bite of steak, she suddenly noticed those green tea ladies nearby. What was going on? They looked quite angry. Lufia swallowed a bite of steak, only to find it unexpectedly spicy. At this moment, contestant number 4 appeared, holding what seemed to be a premeditated glass of water. Lufia gulped down the water. When she looked back, the 4th Prince had sat down beside her and started eating. Lufia's expression looked displeased. With so many seats available, why did this guy have to sit next to her? The 4th Prince candidly said, "Although we're engaged, our relationship is still distant. I just wanted to take this opportunity to get closer to you." Lufia sighed. It seemed she was destined not to enjoy her meal peacefully. She might as well quickly finish eating and leave. The 4th Prince noticed Lufia's mood. He wasn't as thick-skinned as the Crown Prince. The prince put down his fork and stood up. "It seems I've made the princess uncomfortable. I apologize and will take my leave. I hope we'll have a chance to dine together in the future." Just as the 4th Prince was about to leave, Lufia called out to him, her expression somewhat cold. "If your highness has certain motives for wanting to get closer to me, then please don't approach me at all." The 4th Prince was puzzled. "What do you mean by that?" Lufia stood up, also preparing to leave. "Your Highness, you should be very clear. With my Duke father's financial and political support, it would increase your chances of inheriting the throne. And that's exactly what you want, isn't it?" Upon hearing this, the 4th Prince's expression turned serious. "So you mean to say if I didn't have these motives and genuinely wanted to get close to you, you'd accept it?" This sudden counter-question left Lufia at a loss for words. The 4th Prince pondered for a moment, his expression still calm and unperturbed. "All right, I understand now." Watching contestant number 4's retreating figure, Lufia felt a splitting headache. Why were both princes so annoying? Couldn't they just let her rest peacefully for one lifetime? Lufia called for her maid, whose stomach was now round from eating, ready to go home. Only her big bed could heal her now. At that moment, an energetic voice called out, "Fellow student, don't leave. Let's continue the fun." Contestant number 5 stood before her, smiling brightly, expressing how delighted he was to see the princess attending the banquet. Lufia, with exaggerated acting, told the old headmaster that she had a terrible headache and had to excuse herself. The old headmaster exclaimed loudly, "What? The princess is feeling unwell? Then please, princess, go back and rest well. The princess's health is the most precious asset of our Lynette Academy. Don't worry, you just need to rest well. If you're not feeling well, you can skip classes anytime." At this moment, the green tea ladies dropped their bowls in shock. Not only were the two princes obsessed with that woman, but even the old headmaster had fallen for her. This woman had lived for 1,000 years. In her 53rd reincarnation, she was born in a country plagued by war. Even worse, she was an orphan without parents. Faced with a magical beast sent by the enemy country, she showed no intention of avoiding them. Lufia's empty gaze showed no trace of desire for life. But even if she ended this life without prestige, what would the next life be like? Immortality had brought Lufia not only eternal life, but also an endless sense of emptiness. And at that very moment, a resolute man saved her. The man looked at Lufia curiously. "You little one, why didn't you dodge when you saw the magical beast coming? And what's with that look in your eyes?" Lufia, having failed in her attempt to die, turned away expressionlessly, stating she didn't need help. Unexpectedly, after just a few steps, she was scooped up by this man. This man was 8, the king of this dilapidated country, and so began their fateful connection. 8 once told Lufia he wanted to keep the country's people away from the fires of war, to let them live in peace and prosperity, to allow those children to have carefree childhoods. He would also make Lufia the happiest woman in the world. With this belief, Lufia accompanied 8 to the battlefields. But ironically, this life became the most difficult one Lufia had ever lived. She fought alongside 8 for 10 years. After 8's death, she carried on his will and fought alone for another 10 years. Although she escaped countless assassinations and attacks, she ultimately died tragically on the battlefield. Lufia woke from her dream, the face of that man from her previous life still lingering in her mind. Lufia became even more determined. Power, money, and men could all step aside. This life, she was definitely going to be a happy little piggy. Since the end of the last banquet, Lufia had slept for 7 days and 7 nights. She pinched the calendar. Today was suitable for getting up. Lufia sat in the sunshine, sipping a small beer. This was too comfortable. This was the life she wanted. But good times didn't last long. There came another knock at the door. Lufia had a bad feeling. Whenever this door sounded, nothing good ever happened. As the knocking grew louder, clearly not stopping until a hole was made, Lufia reluctantly opened the door. The man outside had a face like a nightmare. Lufia quickly shut the crown prince out, stating that she didn't want to talk to him because he wasn't wearing a mask. The crown prince had clearly come prepared. "I'm not here in a personal capacity, but as an academy professor with business to discuss with you. You should know, students can't be so impolite to professors." Lufia unwillingly opened the door for the crown prince. She wanted to see what official business this professor could have with her. The crown prince expressed his confusion. He had heard that Princess Lufia hadn't attended a single class since enrolling. What was the reason for this? Lufia was arrogant. "What's it to you? I can skip classes." The principal approved it. "If you have a problem, go ask the principal." The crown prince was rebuffed, but didn't give up. He then revealed his true purpose. It turned out that all academy students needed to join at least one club, and they had to regularly participate in club activities. Since Lufia hadn't joined any club yet, she needed to choose one. But unfortunately, all the clubs were already full. Now only the art club, managed by the crown prince, had one spot left. Lufia smiled slightly, indicating she understood. Then she gently bid farewell to the crown prince. The crown prince stood alone at Lufia's doorstep, thinking to himself how difficult this was. Today, the 1,000-year-old princess took the initiative to visit the 4th prince's student council office. Only the 6th prince was in the room. Seeing that the visitor was his 4th sister-in-law, the 6th prince quickly invited Lufia to sit down for a cup of tea. But Lufia firmly declined. At this moment, the fourth prince emerged. He was surprised to see Lufia actively seeking him out. The fourth prince shot a fierce glare at the third wheel, implying that the couple needed some private time and that they should quickly scram. After Lufia sat down, she got straight to the point. She had come to discuss the matter of the Academy's clubs. The fourth prince's imperial gaze seemed to penetrate Lufia's thoughts. He knew that Lufia loved to rest. She would rather make mistakes and be punished with suspension than clean the academy. But the academy had rules requiring students to join clubs. Lufia must be worried that joining a club would be troublesome and cause her distress. The fourth prince pondered for a moment. Why don't you join my club then? You only need to show up once a week. There's not much to do usually. It won't disturb you. Although Lufia was very reluctant, she didn't want to say it directly. Isn't your highness's club very popular? Shouldn't it be full already? The fourth prince smiled slightly. As long as you want to come, making room for you is no difficult task. Lufia knew there was no talking her way out of this. She could only use her trump card. Lufia handed the fourth prince an envelope. She actually wanted to establish her own club, so she came to ask for the fourth prince's approval. Looking at the materials Lufia gave him, the fourth prince found it truly bizarre. The name of the club Lufia applied for was called Love Lufia Gathering. The full name meant People Who Adore Lufia Club. Moreover, the club's meeting place was in Lufia's dormitory. The meeting content was meditation and sleeping. The fourth prince inquired, I know you like to rest, but once a club is established, you can't refuse others' applications to join. Are you clear on this point? Lufia indicated that she was certainly clear, but she didn't care at all. After all, who would join such a bizarre and brainless club? The fourth prince stamped his seal. Lufia's establishment procedures were in order. He approved Lufia's application to create the club. The fourth prince returned Lufia's application materials, but there was an extra piece of paper among them. On it was, surprisingly, his application to join Lufia's club. The fourth prince explained, Don't think too much of it. I'm just monitoring you. As a new student, you went to the casino to gamble on your first day of school, and you haven't attended a single class until now. As the student council president, it's my responsibility to prevent students from going astray. However, I'm very busy. I might not have time to attend your club. Please be understanding as the club president. The fourth prince, who had always appeared calm and composed, now wore a worried expression because he had just lied to Princess Lufia. Lufia, not wanting to join someone else's club, simply found the fourth prince to establish her own, and the fourth prince actually applied to be the first member on the spot. His reason was that he feared Lufia might become a bad student, so he wanted to keep an eye on her. But in reality, the fourth prince simply wanted to get closer to Lufia, because he had many questions for Lufia. For instance, rumors said Lufia had a timid personality, but how come she seemed like a strong woman who punished evil and promoted good? Also, rumors said Lufia was frail, but what about that swordsmanship that could take on two opponents at once? He also wanted to ask Lufia about the crown prince, who seemed to be pursuing her. What kind of feelings did she have for the crown prince? But what the fourth prince wanted to ask most was about her eyes. He could see through others' souls, yet he could never see through Lufia's. He could only sense that Lufia's soul was very weary. He wanted to know what Lufia had been through. But the fourth prince didn't dare to ask. He feared that any of these questions might cause him to become more distant from Lufia. At this moment, Lufia was lying in her dormitory, fast asleep. Another knock sounded at the door. Mary wasn't home, so she had to muster up the courage to answer the door herself. She opened it to find the green-haired boy standing there, looking bashful. The green-haired boy didn't look at all like a grown man, appearing shy and hesitant. Then, summoning his courage, he handed Lufia a piece of paper. Lufia was amused by this pure-hearted young man. Was he asking her to dance or challenging her to a duel? The contents of the paper shocked her. The green-haired boy was actually applying to join her club. Just then, another voice chimed in. I can't believe you beat me to it again. The little deer stood before her, his expression sincere. He too had come to apply for club membership. But that wasn't all. Mealy, the female student Lufia had saved before, also arrived with an application form. Lufia stared at the 3 application forms in disbelief. How could anyone want to join such a boring club? Besides, the name she had given the club, Lufia's admirers, was so embarrassing. The little deer then brought even more shocking news. Many of the noble ladies actually disliked Sophie. But due to Sophie's status as a princess, they could only silently fume. Ever since Lufia had caused a scene at Sophie's tea party, Many of those ladies had come to admire Lufia. Now they were all queuing downstairs, waiting to join Lufia's club. Lufia was startled. She hadn't expected to stir up such a hornet's nest. Suddenly, she had an idea. While she couldn't refuse club applications, she could set a membership limit for the club. The minimum was 5 people. With these 3, plus the crown prince and herself, they already had exactly 5. The 1,000-year-old princess, who only wanted to rest in this life, was now thoroughly annoyed. A group of people had gathered for a meeting in her bedroom. She couldn't even chase them away because they were all members of her club. Although the theme of Lufia's club was meditation and sleeping, these people always brought snacks when they came, and the 4th prince would occasionally drop by as well. The little deer offered Lufia some homemade snacks to taste. At this moment, someone's expression looked particularly displeased. After the 4th prince left, the little deer brought up the topic of the club. The spring academic fair was approaching, and each club needed to showcase some talent. Lufia sighed. It seemed more trouble was brewing. Just then, Millie handed Lufia a stack of documents to review. She had already prepared a talent to showcase for the spring academic fair. Millie's planned talent was to perform a famous play called Two Ladies, which told the love stories of a noble lady and a commoner lady. It required 2 female and 2 male actors. However, knowing Lufia's poor health, Millie hadn't assigned her any role. She planned to recruit the remaining female actor. Lufia felt relieved. It seemed she wouldn't have to do anything. While she felt fortunate, she also felt a bit guilty. After all, she was the club president, but wasn't helping at all. The play rehearsals began in full swing in Lufia's bedroom. But the green-haired boy's acting was terrible. 1,000 dogs would have shown more emotion than him. They thought more practice would help, but even after many days, the green-haired boy showed no improvement. Reluctantly, Millie had to recruit another male actor. However, as Lufia watched them rehearse, she noticed another problem. The little deer's acting was nearly perfect, but Millie couldn't seem to embody the state of the noble lady she was playing. It was clear that Millie's acting wasn't bad. She was just very nervous. Lufia took the opportunity while drinking tea to ask Millie, "Is this performance making you feel burdened?" Millie hurriedly waved her hands in denial, then buried her head in her chest. "Because I proposed this performance, I'm afraid of doing poorly. Not only would it ruin the show, but it would also embarrass you, Your Highness." Lufia encouraged Millie. "As the club president, let me say this. We shouldn't worry about messing up the performance. What matters is participation. Even if we mess up, it's okay. You've already worked so hard." Millie thanked Lufia after hearing this, but her expression still looked very serious. Several days passed. As the academic fair drew nearer, Millie still hadn't recruited the remaining 2 actors. Lufia was also worried. Although she just wanted to rest well, she still wanted to help Millie make this performance a success. While strolling on the street, she suddenly overheard 2 students whispering about her club. Upon listening closely, she understood the reason. It was Sophie who was secretly causing trouble. Sophie had warned that no one was allowed to guest star in Lufia's club, or they would be making an enemy of her. Lufia was already getting angry. Sophie could do whatever she wanted to her, but she didn't want to see Millie and the others' efforts go to waste. Although very reluctant, Lufia decided to take matters into her own hands. She would play the role of the commoner lady herself, but they still needed one more male actor to play her lover. Who could they find to prevent her club members' efforts from being in vain? The millennial princess chose to play the role of the commoner lady in the play herself, but they still needed a male actor to play her lover. Who could they find? Just as Lufia was worrying, the handsome 4th prince blocked her path. The 4th prince's expression was slightly angry as he questioned Lufia. "Why didn't you tell me about the play performance? After all, I'm also a member of the club." Lufia explained to him, "Considering how busy you already are with the student council, that's why we didn't notify you." The 4th prince then told Lufia that he had already heard about the difficulty in recruiting actors. So if Lufia allowed, he could play a role. Although he had almost no time to rehearse in Lufia's dormitory, he would find a way to practice on his own. Lufia was a bit surprised, so the 4th prince wanted to contribute too. This was good. Having the 4th prince participate as a club member was the best outcome. Lufia handed him the script that Millie had prepared earlier. The 4th prince examined it. He discovered that his role was the lover of the commoner lady, who was to be played by Lufia. At this moment, the corners of the man's mouth couldn't help but turn up slightly. Then, pretending to be calm, he quickly stuffed the script into his chest and said, "Since I'm performing with the princess, then please help me practice when you have time, princess." After all, the princess doesn't attend classes, so you have plenty of time. I'll do my best to prepare for the play. Just as Lufia was about to say something, the fourth prince didn't give her a chance and quickly slipped away. Lufia stood there dumbfounded. At this moment, she felt that something wasn't quite right. After returning, Lufia informed everyone about her decision to perform alongside the fourth prince in the other two roles. Mealy was overjoyed. The esteemed prince had actually joined their endeavor. However, the little deer's expression seemed somewhat complex. It was unclear whether she was genuinely concerned about Lufia's health or if there were other reasons. Lufia awkwardly stated, "Don't worry about my health. Even if it's exhausting, I'll persevere through the performance." This selfless declaration moved everyone deeply. Lufia quickly changed the subject. "Since the academic fair is about to begin, let's have an emergency rehearsal." At the mention of rehearsal, Mealy swiftly entered a state of nervousness, her expression tense and her body sweating. Lufia felt worried. If she was like this, without any outsiders present, Lufia wondered if Mealy might suffer menstrual irregularities from stress on stage. Lufia called out Mealy's name forcefully. She began by praising all of Mealy's strengths. Then, she pointed out her fatal flaw, a severe lack of confidence. Lufia comforted Mealy. "You need to fully immerse yourself in the character you're playing. Don't worry about others' opinions. Just imagine all those audience members watching your little pigs. And not just any pigs, but pitiful single pigs. And you're a noble lady with a romantic love story. So be confident. There's nothing to fear." Mealy was deeply touched by these words. She closed her eyes, silently chanting in her heart, "I am a noble lady. You're little pigs. You are little pigs. I'm a noble lady." Mealy was now in character. She recited her lines loudly with animated expressions. The elegant and noble aura of an aristocratic lady instantly radiated from her. Lufia smiled slightly, very satisfied with Mealy's sudden great progress. All thanks to those little pigs watching her. The 1,000-year-old princess was now leisurely enjoying tea with her companions. They had nearly finished rehearsing for the play. However, her friends were still somewhat worried, unsure how the fourth prince's practice was going. Lufia sighed, "Don't worry about him. The fourth prince should be able to manage. Besides, I've already agreed to help him rehearse." Upon hearing that Lufia would be practicing alone with the fourth prince, the little deer's face clearly showed signs of unhappiness. At this moment, the fourth prince was still diligently memorizing his lines when a knock came at the door. Lufia didn't exchange pleasantries, stating directly that she had come to rehearse. Lufia gazed at the fourth prince with deep affection, spontaneously delivering a line. The fourth prince, equally passionate, caressed Lufia's hair. "You could trust me completely. Rely on me to ease your pain." As he spoke, he leaned his face closer and closer. Lufia quickly pushed the man's face away. She said, "I randomly said a line, and you were able to follow up with the next one. It seems you've been practicing hard. That puts my mind at ease." The fourth prince praised Lufia with hidden meaning. "The princess is too kind. Your acting skills are truly the most praiseworthy." Lufia smiled confidently. "Don't be so surprised. I'm a genius. Acting is child's play for me." The fourth prince continued, as expected of the princess. "I've heard that the princess has a strange illness that flares up when she's the center of attention. Yet your acting is still so impressive." Lufia asked if the fourth prince had already used his royal insight to see through some of her secrets. The fourth prince smiled slightly. An opportunity had presented itself. He looked at Lufia seriously. "Actually, I haven't seen through anything. However, it was evident that the princess's soul was in a state of extreme fatigue." The fourth prince put down his book and continued, "If possible, I hope I can be like the character in the play, becoming your strength and alleviating your pain." Lufia scoffed upon hearing this. So, His Highness the Fourth Prince was also capable of such cheesy lines. Lufia then laboriously brought forward something she had brought with her to the fourth prince. Opening the package, it turned out to be a Lufia doll. The fourth prince held the item with a bewildered expression. Lufia nonchalantly stated, "I won't have time to come for rehearsals anymore. When you practice, Just pretend this doll is me. Remember, you can only rehearse with it. Don't let your imagination run wild. Lufia slammed the door shut with a bang, leaving the fourth prince dumbfounded. Lufia hid outside the door, recalling the fourth prince's cheesy lines, her heart filled with mixed emotions. Today was the start of the academic fair at the academy, where the 1,000-year-old princess studied. Each club was to showcase their talents. At this moment, the Green Tea Squad was plotting their little secret. However, Sophie hadn't done anything bad this time. On the contrary, she had pleaded with the academy to arrange Lufia's club performance in the largest and most luxurious auditorium. The pink-haired girl was quite puzzled. Why would Princess Sophie do such a thing? Had she forgotten their initial intention as antagonists? Sophie, unaware that the fourth prince had joined the performance, smiled mischievously and said, "Don't worry. 3 commoners plus Lufia, who's not even as good as a commoner. What kind of good performance could their team possibly give? I deliberately arranged for them to perform in the most prominent auditorium. I wonder how embarrassed that Lufia woman will be if they mess up in front of so many people." The pink-haired girl enthusiastically praised Sophie. "My goodness, Miss Sophie's scheming skills are getting more and more impressive." The audience in the auditorium had already taken their seats. The old headmaster had also arrived at the stands with his young wife. Sophie was brimming with confidence. She could hardly wait to see those commoner actors make fools of themselves. The spotlight shone on the stage. Mealy's demeanor was completely different from her usual self, appearing delicate and refined, just like a noble lady steeped in scholarly grace. Little Deer was also in excellent form. He was playing the role of a shy young master who had a secret crush on Mealy, but never dared to confess. Mealy, on the other hand, was portraying a noble lady whose family had just fallen from grace. Faced with Little Deer's sudden confession, Mealy believed he was only taking advantage of her family's downfall, because rumors circulated that Little Deer was an unrepentant playboy. Thus, one offered his true heart, while the other thought she was merely being toyed with. Little Deer pursued. Mealy fled, their fate seemingly inescapable. But Mealy eventually escaped. She hid in a corner, weeping in anguish. It turned out she had always known Little Deer's feelings were genuine, but she loved him too much. Therefore, she feared her family situation would ruin Little Deer's future. As the performance ended, the audience below was moved to tears. At this moment, Lufia took the stage. Carrying a bucket, she constantly complained about her life as a commoner lady, with endless chores every day. The Green Tea Sisters whispered among themselves, "Look at that. That woman plays a commoner too, convincingly." Indeed, the commoner genes ingrained in her bones can't be changed. Just as Lufia was feeling utterly disappointed with life, the fourth prince entered the stage as a knight. The Green Tea Sisters' faces changed in an instant. The fourth prince? How could His Highness participate in such a ridiculous play? It's well known that as the student council president, he usually has the sixth prince stand in for him, even for regular speeches. Ever since the knight appeared in the commoner lady's world, her life became colorful. Even doing chores became joyful. This must be the power of love. The audience below was shocked. It's well known that these two roles in the play are difficult even for professional actors to portray. But here was the Empire's prince and a duke's eldest princess, portraying commoner roles with uncanny realism. The fourth prince grabbed Lufia's hand and confessed sincerely, "Trust me, I will help you share your burdens." As he spoke, he pulled Lufia into his arms, about to kiss her. Unlike the passionate love between the nobles portrayed by Little Deer and Mealy, the commoners played by Lufia and the fourth prince were more grounded in reality. A commoner lady with endless chores and a diligent, hard-working knight. Though life had battered them, and they were weighed down by car loans and mortgages, the couple hadn't lost their hope for the future, supporting and encouraging each other. The fourth prince gently cupped Lufia's face, promising her that he would work hard to make her happy. With that, he leaned in for a deep kiss. This seemingly simple kiss. Do you know how severe the consequences are? The Green Tea Sisters dropped their bowls in shock. The audience below was moved to tears. The old headmaster and his young wife felt 10 years younger with excitement. Little Deer's heart felt like it had been cut with a knife. The crown prince, enraged, turned and left immediately. "Tomorrow we'll be rich. My friends also gave me a thumbs up." As the kiss concluded, the entire play came to a perfect end. Lufia and her companions received thunderous applause. Back in the dressing room, Millie hugged Lufia tightly, crying with joy. It was thanks to Lufia's encouragement that she was able to do this. The fourth prince leaned close to Lufia and whispered, "Princess, I hope my sudden suggestion earlier didn't make you uncomfortable." It turned out that just before the performance, the fourth prince had a sudden idea to add a kissing scene with Lufia at the end of the play. The original script didn't include a kiss, but the fourth prince thought their story might be a bit dull, so he suggested this to enhance the audience's experience. He assured her they didn't need to actually kiss, just stand close enough to block the audience's view. Lufia smiled slightly. Of course it was uncomfortable, but seeing the result, it was worth it. The fourth prince expressed that even if the performance had failed, it would have been a happy experience for him. More importantly, he was glad he could help Lufia. Watching the fourth prince's retreating figure, Lufia felt somewhat perplexed. She had never heard this man speak in such a tone before. Meanwhile, the crown prince, in a gloomy mood, was lying under a tree lost in thought. A man approached from behind. It was his fourth brother. The crown prince sneered contemptuously. "Your play was quite entertaining. I'm almost jealous." The fourth prince looked at him coldly. "You seem to have taken quite an interest in my fiancée lately. Do you have some ulterior motive?" The crown prince stared back just as coldly. "Your emperor's eyes must have already seen through my intentions." The crown prince issued a challenge to the fourth prince. "Don't think you can relax just because you're engaged. We'll see how this plays out." Princess Lufia was awakened in the middle of the night by a nightmare, so she got up to relieve herself and clear her head. But as she walked to the academy's pavilion, she found the crown prince sitting there. Lufia tried to tiptoe away quietly, but the crown prince still noticed her. The crown prince invited Lufia to chat. Out of politeness, Lufia had no choice but to sit down. The crown prince, with a somewhat pained expression, asked her, "You told me before that you wouldn't accept anyone, but now you seem very close to my fourth brother, and you even kissed during the play." The crown prince's speech became increasingly stuttered, losing all the dignity befitting a prince. He stood up and looked at Lufia earnestly. "Answer me. Are you planning to marry my fourth brother in the future?" Lufia, not wanting to deceive him, firmly stated that she had no such intention. She reiterated that she still didn't want to accept anyone. Then Lufia asked the crown prince, "Why did you fall for me? We've only met a few times. We haven't even experienced anything together." The crown prince's expression turned somewhat shy. Does love need a reason? When you realize you've fallen for someone, you might not even remember the exact moment it happened. That being said, if you don't want to accept anyone, have you never liked anyone before? Lufia smiled faintly. On the contrary, it was because she still held someone in her heart that she was like this. The crown prince was surprised. No matter how we pursue you, we can't win your heart. But that person holds such an important place in your heart. Who exactly is he? Lufia told the crown prince the name of her lover from her previous life. The crown prince felt as if Lufia had tricked him again. The yet that Lufia mentioned was the king of a country in the central region. The place was quite far from the empire, and King had been dead for 10 years. Anyway, they had said all that needed to be said. Lufia didn't want to linger with the crown prince any longer. Just as she was about to stand up and leave, the crown prince called out to her again. He asked, "Hey woman, how about we have a contract relationship?" Lufia felt like her teeth were about to fall out. "What contract relationship? Have you been watching too many Korean dramas?" The crown prince explained, "You don't want to marry my fourth brother anyway. If you want to break off the engagement, having a rumored boyfriend would make things much smoother." Lufia firmly refused. "I don't want to make a big fuss. Besides, even if I cancel the engagement, I won't marry you either, crown prince. What are you plotting?" The crown prince smiled slightly. "Let me pretend to be your rumored boyfriend. This way we can meet often. As time goes by, you might end up falling for me. Indeed, a man in love has no intelligence." Lufia felt the crown prince was incredibly childish at this moment. Not wanting to argue further, Lufia bid farewell and walked away without mercy. The crown prince watched Lufia's retreating figure undeterred. Instead, he cheered himself on inwardly, determined not to give up. The maid Mary's jaw dropped at Princess Lufia's words, because Lufia said she was going to class. "What's going on? Is this still our usual piggy-like lady?" It turns out that just now, Lufia had realized her club was seriously disturbing her rest. Moreover, the fourth prince and the crown prince were like two ticking time bombs. For the sake of her retirement plans, she had to flee the academy as soon as possible. But to be expelled from the academy, one needed to commit a very serious offense. Lufia flipped through the school rules and found that the academy now allowed grade skipping. As long as one's grades were excellent, they could apply for grade skipping after each academy exam. This way, she could graduate in just one semester if things went smoothly. To be on the safe side, Lufia decided to go to the classroom to catch up on her studies. As soon as she arrived at the classroom, Lufia aimed for the empty seat next to the pink-haired girl. But the pink-haired girl directly refused and complained to the professor, saying Lufia hadn't attended class for half a semester and sitting next to her would only be a distraction. The professor was also in a difficult position and suggested to Lufia that she should catch up on previous lessons before coming to class. Lufia refused, saying she had already caught up. The pink-haired girl looked disbelieving. According to intelligence, Lufia had been sleeping in her dorm every day. How could she possibly have caught up on her studies? She pointed to a question on the blackboard. If you can answer this question correctly, I'll allow you to sit next to me. Lufia smiled confidently. She just glanced at it and casually gave the answer. The professor quickly used a calculator for 5 minutes and found that Lufia's answer was exactly correct. The pink-haired girl was shocked. How is that possible? I've been working on that problem for an entire class and still haven't figured out the answer. Lufia smiled slightly, her face full of mockery. If you can't solve such a simple problem, is your little head filled with poop? Lufia successfully became desk mates with the pink-haired girl. A few days later, the first exam arrived. Lufia looked at her report card in shock. Good grief, only 2 subjects passed, all others failed. Lufia knew clearly that she definitely knew all those questions. There must be something fishy going on. Lufia, fuming with anger, was about to confront the subject professors when a delicate voice came. It's no use, princess. Please calm down first. The noble lady before her was her classmate, Little Black, also an excellent student with outstanding academic performance. Little Black handed her report card to Lufia, who was quite surprised. Little Black was a top student and a genius who had entered the Lynette Academy, ranking 3rd, and her efforts were well known. Yet this time her grades were also terrible. Little Black revealed the truth to Lufia. It turned out the Academy's professors had long since become corrupt. Those students who bribed the professors, even if they performed terribly, could get high scores, while students who didn't participate in bribery, the professors would just casually give grades without even looking at the content of their papers. A major absurdity. Lufia took the Academy exam and failed 5 out of 7 subjects. It should be known that even this academy was once founded by Lufia herself in her previous lives. How could it be possible that she, as a mere student, could fail such an exam? After Little Black's disclosure, Lufia finally understood that the academy's professors had long since lost their professional ethics. They only gave high scores to students who bribed them. Little Black begged Lufia to take action on this matter. Because Little Black's family had fallen on hard times, she had no money to bribe the teachers. But if she couldn't graduate from the academy with excellent grades, Little Black would have no hope of reviving her family. Then she would only be sold by her father to become a concubine of an old nobleman. Lufia expressed that she felt somewhat powerless. After all, she was now a fallen princess abandoned by her family. Little Black said excitedly, "Right now, only you, princess, can help us poor students. Your righteous actions have already earned the respect of the students. I believe that as long as you're willing to stand with us, everyone will be filled with courage." At this moment, Greenhair also stepped forward, saying he would do his part. Although his grades were terrible now, who knew when they might suddenly improve? Little Deer and Mary also righteously expressed their willingness to help with this matter. Striking against evil forces couldn't be delayed. This overwhelming positive energy shone so brightly that Lufia could barely keep her eyes open. Lufia began to ponder. She had originally planned to use good grades to skip grades and graduate early. But that path was no longer viable. If she openly confronted the professors, she might even face severe punishment. Wait, severe punishment. If she could make this matter serious enough to get herself expelled, wouldn't that mean graduating even earlier? Lufia's heart leapt with excitement at the thought. She slapped the table and announced, "I can take charge of this matter, but on one condition. You must pin all the blame on me in the end." Lufia burst into the academy's music classroom. The music professor was lecturing students and was not at all pleased to see the sudden intruder. He didn't care if she was a princess. Without having bribed him, she was just trash. But Lufia was even less polite. She rudely walked over and picked up the professor's personal violin. The music professor flew into a rage. "You brat, put that down. It's my family's heirloom, the only one in the world." Lufia smiled slightly. "You want me to let go? All right." She then let the violin drop. The professor's face turned purple with fright. But Lufia caught the violin in midair, grabbing it back in her hand. Lufia warned the professor in front of the students, "I just had a whim to play a piece. Before that, please keep quiet, Professor. Otherwise, something unpleasant might happen." Today, the millennial princess was a musician. She snatched the music professor's treasured violin and began to play a piece in front of the students. When the piece ended, the students were captivated by the beautiful sound. Lufia asked the professor, "If this were an exam, how many points would you give me?" Although the music professor didn't want to respond, he had no choice with all the students watching. He reluctantly said, "It should get full marks." Lufia smiled slightly and said sarcastically, "Then please continue listening, Professor. After all, your ears have been blinded by money. You might not hear so clearly." Lufia slowly drew the bow across the violin. The same piece, but this time the sound was unbearably awful. Not only was it off-key, but the rhythm was chaotic. The students' ears were about to revolt. Lufia asked again, "How many points would you give this piece, Professor?" The professor pondered for a moment. "This piece wasn't as outstanding. Let's give it 8 points. That's a fair score. The remaining 92 points, I really can't give even one more." Seeing Lufia put the violin back on her neck, ready to play again, the professor quickly stopped her. "You bizarre girl, what exactly are you trying to do?" Lufia put down the violin and said innocently, "My dear professor, haven't you noticed these two pieces sound familiar? Yesterday, 2 students performed using the same melody as I just did for the exam. Amusingly, for the first piece I played, you gave a failing grade on the test paper. But for the second piece, you gave a perfect score on the test paper." As these words were uttered, the students erupted into chaos. The professor realized the situation was becoming serious. He quickly dismissed the students, ending today's class early. The professor inquired of Lufia, "Your performance just now, were you imitating yesterday's exam takers?" Lufia smiled slightly. "It seems the professor needs my help to jog your memory. Yesterday, Guzzi performed so well, yet you gave him a failing grade. But Miss Eileen's piece was utterly unbearable to listen to, yet you gave her such a high score. And it's not just those 2. Seeing that his scheme had been exposed, the professor no longer tried to conceal it. "My approach may indeed be unfair, but what of it? I have indeed received many gifts from noble students. You should know that diligently giving gifts is also a form of effort. What's wrong with me adding a few points for hard-working children? As for those students who haven't given gifts, it's clear they don't care about their grades. If they don't care about grades, what does it matter if I deduct a few points? Besides, there's no standard for grading art. I can give whatever grades I want. It's my right. Do you understand?" Lufia listened without speaking. Instead, she unexpectedly bowed, indicating she had learned her lesson. Watching Lufia prepare to leave with an expressionless face, the professor couldn't resist a few more taunts. "It seems you, a fallen princess, want to take your worthless sense of justice and report me, huh? Go ahead and see if anyone will believe your nonsense. But before that, you might find yourself kicked out of the academy by me first." Lufia turned back with a cold smile. "We'll see about that." As Lufia walked out of the classroom, she took out the magical voice recorder hidden in her bosom. She pressed it once, and the earlier conversation could be heard crystal clear. Lufia tucked it back in her pocket. It seemed those 3,000 copper coins weren't wasted after all. Faced with corruption among the Academy's professors, what should one do? Of course, record evidence of their bribery. Lufia had already used the magical voice recorder to extract confessions from most of the professors. Some professors even shamelessly suggested that Lufia bribe them, promising to give her high scores next time as well. Meanwhile, Little Black and the others, through their investigations, had also collected many testimonies from students who had witnessed professors accepting bribes. Moreover, they had compiled the falsified grade reports of the professors. Lufia slammed the table. Attention, all groups. We act tonight. Lufia assigned tasks to her companions. Tonight, use the Academy's broadcast as a signal. As soon as you hear the broadcast, throw these copied documents from the rooftop. Remember, after scattering the documents, quickly flee the scene. I'll handle the rest. Her companions, upon hearing this, firmly disagreed. How can we let you, Princess, take the fall alone? But Lufia sternly warned, if you don't listen, I'll never speak to you again. At this, the group didn't know how to persuade her anymore. Little Deer then declared righteously, if, after this incident, the Academy imposes unfair punishment on the princess, then they will face the wrath of our Kelman kingdom. Greenhair chuckled, you're just a commoner. Why are you pretending to be a rich kid? Greenhair then also promised Lufia, if the princess suffers punishment, I will use my family's meager influence to protect you. Lufia felt somewhat exasperated inside. Don't ruin my plan to get expelled. So you're the real villains here, huh? As night fell, Lufia ventured alone to the broadcasting professor's room. The professor was surprised to see her visitor. However, he quickly understood and sneered at Lufia, saying, I hear you've been standing up for those students who received low scores lately. I advise you not to waste your energy. No one will care about this matter. But Lufia had no intention of engaging with the fat man before her. Her eyes were fixed on the broadcasting room key on the desk. Lufia casually examined the professor's prized antique vase, and then suddenly picked it up, cradling it in her arms. The professor was about to warn Lufia to put down the vase, as it was extremely valuable. But Lufia did put it down on the floor. Looking at the shattered pieces on the ground, the professor's face paled in shock. But it wasn't over. Lufia then smashed another vase on the floor. Taking advantage of the chaos, Lufia had secretly grabbed the broadcasting room key. She then bolted out of the professor's room. The professor chased, Lufia fled. They couldn't escape. Lufia ran into the Academy's broadcasting room. She locked the professor out. Then she placed the phonograph on the broadcast microphone. The professor's loud voice echoed throughout the Academy. What does it matter? Those poor students are of no use to me. Why should I care about their grades? At this moment, the Academy students were in an uproar, gathering in the campus. Little Deer and the others were preparing to scatter the documents from the rooftop. At this time, the Crown Prince appeared out of nowhere. He seemed to have known about Lufia's plan all along and used wind magic to help Little Deer spread the copied documents everywhere. Princess Lufia was in the school's broadcasting room, playing the recording of the professor's meeting. Little Deer's group was also scattering the detailed documents of the professor's meeting all over the campus. The professors were furious outside the broadcasting room. The magic professor used magic to blast open the door. The music professor, lacking all dignity, was about to lunge forward to fight. Just then, Lufia heard a voice. The Crown Prince emerged from a teleportation barrier. He threw the professor's bribery documents in their faces. He coldly said, "Now the evidence is irrefutable. You will be arrested. Trust that the court will give you a fair and just punishment." At this moment, the fourth prince also arrived with soldiers, having heard the news. The Crown Prince looked at his late-arriving fourth brother and smirked. "Looks like you're too late. You're in the same club, and you're even her fiancé, yet you didn't know about such a big event." Lufia looked at the Crown Prince with interest and said, "Apart from me and Little Deer, no one else knew about this. You really are mysterious. But thank you. This time it was all thanks to you." Praised by his goddess, the Crown Prince quickly moved closer, wagging his tail, hoping Lufia would continue to compliment him. The fourth prince couldn't stand it anymore and directly separated the two. The Crown Prince was stunned. Then he laughed. Fine. After all, she's still your fiancée now." He cast a teleportation barrier and continued, "But don't be too smug. Everything in this world is subject to change." The Crown Prince left, and the professors were temporarily arrested by the soldiers. The fourth prince, with a somewhat displeased expression, told Lufia, "Although what you did this time was remarkable, entering the broadcasting room without permission and distributing flyers to cause chaos, you should know that recording is also illegal. These are minor issues. The most important thing is that this incident will damage the Academy's reputation. You might face punishment from the Academy. If you have anything to say, Tell me. As the student council president, I'll do my best to help you. Lufia knew this guy was trying to pull strings for her again. Lufia glared at the fourth prince angrily. Give me the harshest punishment, strictly according to school rules. That's what I want. The next day, the academy held a disciplinary meeting. Given the magnitude of the incident, the old headmaster personally attended. As expected, the old headmaster was the one who loved Lufia the most. According to school rules, and after unanimous decision by the academy's senior management, Lufia, who had caused such a big scandal for the academy, should be expelled. But the old headmaster single-handedly vetoed all proposals. Not only did he not punish Lufia, but citing her righteous act of rooting out the academy's cancer, he awarded her the highest honor medal. Lufia was dumbfounded. For all her calculations, she still hadn't accounted for the old headmaster's prowess as the ultimate villain. Princess Qian Sui was very troubled today. She hadn't expected her plan to drop out of school would fall through again. At this moment, there was a knock at the door. When Maid Mary opened it, she was stunned. The visitor was actually the eldest son of Lufia's father and stepmother. The atmosphere was somewhat awkward. Lufia hadn't seen this brother for about a semester. The white-haired brother took a sip of tea and asked, "Have you been well lately?" Lufia didn't want to exchange pleasantries with him. Just say what you came for. The brother stated the purpose of his visit. He had come to persuade Lufia to return home, and this was their father's wish. Lufia put down her tea. Is this an order? She didn't want to return to that fractured home devoid of familial affection. Lufia said coldly, "You should know what kind of life I had in that home. Besides, father allowed me to leave home. Now he wants me to return? Does the word of the esteemed Duke not count?" The brother was also in a difficult position. "I understand how you feel, but you are still of the family's bloodline. As a member of the family, you cannot refuse father's orders." Lufia felt utterly disgusted. Now you're talking about bloodline? Back then, you all watched with your own eyes as the owner of this body died. At this moment, that man appeared. The fourth prince admitted that he had overheard the conversation outside the door. He asked the brother, "Is there any reason for suddenly wanting the princess to return home when she's halfway through her studies?" The brother, however, stated that this was an internal family matter and inconvenient to disclose. Hearing this, the fourth prince didn't mince words. "Princess Lufia cannot leave now. You must have heard about what happened to her recently. She has already been punished by the academy." Lufia was surprised. Was this guy trying to help her? The fourth prince continued, "Princess Lufia is guilty of misconduct. If you take her back now, the outside world might think that the Duke is doing this to prevent his daughter from being punished. That would not only embarrass the Duke, but also bring shame to me as the princess's fiancé." Hearing this, the brother didn't know how to respond and could only agree with the fourth prince's suggestion. As he was leaving, the brother said to Lufia, "I'll explain to father when I return, but I still suggest you visit home more often when you have time. Although I might not have the right to say this, I still hope you won't hate father so much." Lufia remained silent. She clenched her fists tightly. Her family members had never sincerely apologized to her. Now they had the audacity to ask her not to dislike them. She had no right to forgive on behalf of the deceased. Lufia's brother sighed and walked away. Lufia also sighed. There were so many troubles these days. However, she hadn't expected that even the upright fourth prince would lie. Lufia looked at the man before her and asked, "Why did you go so far as to lie to help me?" The fourth prince's face turned shy, and he stuttered a bit. After struggling for a while, he managed to say, "Because I want to spend more time with you at the academy." This woman had been reborn 54 times, living for 1,000 years. She was tired of the world's intrigues. In this life, the 1,000-year princess only wanted to find a place to retire peacefully, but her family background meant she couldn't rest easy. Lufia had run away from home and come to the academy she had founded in her previous lives, intending to be an incognito fallen princess. But troubles kept coming one after another. Not only was there a persistent crown prince who constantly professed his love and disturbed her sleep, but also a fourth prince who was engaged to her and wanted to join the commotion. The key was that this fourth prince, originally a cold and straightforward man, had become a blushing puppy who got shy at the slightest provocation in front of Lufia. And now, the 1,000-year princess was entangled with another troublesome person. The man before her was her brother, born to her father and stepmother. Her brother had no other intention in finding her here, only hoping that Lufia would stop running away from home and return quickly. He said everyone at home missed her very much. Good grief. Those people at home had all neglected and ignored the original owner of Lufia's body. And that annoying stepmother was always causing trouble, leading to this body dying alone and sick in bed. Now, they claimed to Miss Lufia? Who were they trying to fool? Just as Lufia was about to unleash a torrent of curses, the fourth prince stepped in to defuse the situation. With a few words, he left her brother with no grounds for rebuttal, forcing him to leave tactfully. Lufia questioned the fourth prince why he had helped her. The fourth prince put on a shy face and replied, "Because I want to spend more time with you." As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere instantly became awkward. The fourth prince quickly cleared his throat and changed the subject. "By the way, about the trouble you caused last time, it's not entirely without punishment. The school leadership has decided to suspend you for 2 weeks. And during these 2 weeks, you need to write a reflection essay every day." The fourth prince's face was full of smiles. "Don't worry, if you don't know how to write reflections, I can help you." Sure enough, in the following days, the fourth prince visited Lufia's dormitory every day. He even boldly stated that being with Lufia made him feel inexplicably comfortable. Annoying, truly annoying. Lufia didn't want to continue being entangled like this. She slammed the table and looked solemnly at His Highness the Fourth Prince. "Let's break off our engagement." The 1,000-year princess only wanted to rest in this life, not to be entangled with men. With a serious face, she said to the handsome fourth prince, "Your Highness, let's break off our engagement." The fourth prince, who had been cheerful just a moment ago, changed his expression upon hearing this. He warned Lufia that this was not a matter to joke about. "You'd better give me a perfect reason." Lufia, the little actress, lowered her eyes and told the fourth prince in an apologetic tone, "I'm sorry, Your Highness. I'm not worthy of you. The truth is, I'm unable to bear children." Hearing this bombshell, the fourth prince's expression trembled. However, Lufia wasn't lying. She truly couldn't have children. Having been reborn 54 times, she had essentially transcended the laws of this world. In these 1,000 years, she had never once conceived. But perhaps this was for the best. If she had to endure the pain of separation from her children in every life, wouldn't that be unbearable torture? As Lufia was lost in thought, the fourth prince had quietly approached her. Suddenly, he pulled her into his embrace. The man spoke with deep emotion. "I don't know how to comfort you. You must be in so much pain, having gone through this. I finally understand why you've been keeping your distance from me all this time. It's all right. Even if we can't have our own, we could always adopt." In essence, he was saying just one thing: "I love you even more now." Lufia quickly shook off the man's hands, saying, "Don't overthink it. I don't need your sympathy. So, please, Your Highness, reconsider the matter of breaking off our engagement." The fourth prince's face was full of righteous indignation. "I absolutely won't break off our engagement for a reason like this." Seeing the man's determined expression, Lufia was at a loss for words. She could only turn away, asking the fourth prince to leave, saying she needed some time alone. Although Lufia's heart was filled with helplessness, as she listened to the fourth prince's gradually fading footsteps, she couldn't help but feel deeply moved. She never thought that even this reason wouldn't persuade him. After all, bloodline was crucial for the royal family. Moreover, the fact that his first reaction was to comfort her, telling her not to be sad, truly warmed her heart. This fourth prince, as handsome as herself, now furrowed his brows. Because just now, Lufia had proposed to break off their engagement. Although he had clearly refused, he still felt uneasy. At the same time, he couldn't understand himself. He possessed the Emperor's eye, which allowed him to see into people's hearts. For instance, in the hearts of greedy and filthy individuals, he could see a pig. Or in the hearts of those noble and kind, he could see a bouquet of orchids. In short, whatever was in their hearts, he could see a corresponding symbol. But Lufia's soul alone, he couldn't see through. Moreover, that woman always seemed disinterested in everything, with a faint hint of sadness hidden in her eyes. What kind of person was she really? Just then, the sixth prince pushed open the door, entering the fourth prince's student council president office. He immediately stated that something big might happen at the academy soon. But after calling out to his fourth brother several times, the fourth prince only absent-mindedly responded. The sixth prince slammed the table, reiterating that the crown prince's recent movements were very unusual, as if he was plotting something sinister. But the fourth prince still maintained an indifferent attitude, seemingly not focused at all. The sixth prince grew angry. He shouted at his fourth brother, asking what if the crown prince's schemes resulted in him truly stealing the position of heir to the throne. He shouldn't be so nonchalant just because he had the emperor's eye. Seeing his sixth brother's anger, the fourth prince finally spoke slowly. Big brother is probably searching for that door, the door to another world. As is well known, since the empire's founding 1,000 years ago, all those who ascended to the throne possessed the emperor's eye. This was because the emperor's eye held immense power. But the ambitious crown prince, despite not having these eyes, still wanted to challenge his fourth brother for the throne. The only way to do so was to find something that could rival the power of the emperor's eye. And 200 years ago, here at Lynette Academy, a door appeared that could lead to another world. Legend had it that inside the door lay a power that could overturn the world. But later, this door was sealed by the headmaster of Lynette at the time, along with 5 wise student sages. The sixth prince immediately realized that Big Brother must be trying to find and open that door. They needed to think of a countermeasure now. But the fourth prince still seemed distracted. The sixth prince was bewildered. Something wasn't right. Fourth brother, why do you look so strange today? The fourth prince's face blushed as he mumbled softly, I'm thinking about your sister-in-law. Princess Lufia, the millennial princess, only wanted to live out this life in peace. But she encountered another troublesome matter. Little Mealy excitedly informed her, Princess Lufia, you've been nominated as a candidate for the Student Council representative. Lufia was shocked as she looked at the poster on the wall. On the list of candidates for Student Council representative were not only herself, but also Princess Sophie and Little Pink Hair. It was well known that the fourth prince, as the Student Council president, already had his hands full every day. And the Student Council representative was essentially the president's secretary. The workload was unimaginable. Lufia had no desire to take on such a troublesome position, so this matter had to be nipped in the bud. She hurried to the fourth prince's office. She immediately declared her intention to withdraw from the election. She claimed that her health wasn't good and she couldn't work for long hours. Moreover, she had social anxiety and easily got dizzy in crowded places. The fourth prince ignored her excuses, stating that he had anticipated she would use such pretexts. The fourth prince calmly invited Lufia to sit down and made a suggestion. If Lufia could become the student council representative and stick it out for 1 semester without causing any trouble, he would help her coast comfortably to graduation. But Lufia showed no interest. Couldn't she still coast to graduation without getting involved in such troublesome affairs? The fourth prince seemed to have anticipated Lufia's attitude. His previous suggestion was just a setup. He spoke again, deliberately and slowly. Then let me offer a different condition. If you can become the student council representative and last for 1 semester, I'll help you leave the academy when it's over. Don't worry, with my status, I can easily find a reason to help you drop out smoothly. Lufia clearly hadn't expected the fourth prince to say this. She asked, Your Highness, what do you gain from this? The fourth prince, evidently experienced, managed to hold back a blush as he prepared to say something flirtatious. Holding a bowl of noodles, he replied leisurely, If you become the student council representative, won't we be able to see each other often? Rather than spending the next 4 years thinking of reasons to approach you every day, it's better to spend the next year being able to interact with you legitimately every day. I can spend time with you properly every day. Lufia listened and inwardly laughed bitterly. The last time she had coldly proposed to break off the engagement with this man, she had thought he would be heartbroken, and she had even felt guilty for a while. Now it seemed she had overthought it. However, this proposal wasn't bad. If she could endure for a year, she would gain her freedom and could find a thatched cottage in the countryside to sleep and retire in peace. The millennial princess Lufia only wanted to sleep and retire peacefully in this life. But now nothing tasted good to her, because she had stumbled into another troublesome affair. She had to win the election to become the student council representative, because the fourth prince had promised him. As long as he could become the representative, after 1 semester, the fourth prince would help him leave the academy. Although the little members of the Lufia Club were all working hard to campaign for him, the results were not satisfactory. After all, there was still Sophie. That guy was also a candidate for the student council representative. How could Sophie just sit by and watch Lufia surpass him, unable to outdo Sophie in offstage campaigning? It seemed now that the only chance lay in the candidate's speech meeting. Lufia was thinking at this moment. She was most adept at giving speeches. After all, she had been a prime minister and a queen before. Her brainwashing skills were first class. Dealing with this little girl would be a piece of cake. But precisely because of this, if the disparity in ability was too great, what if it aroused suspicion? In essence, it was like this. Possessing a combat power of 10,000, how could one control their strength to only deal 6 points of damage when fighting a weakling with only 5 combat power? It was troublesome, but he seemed to have underestimated Sophie's tactics. The Green Tea Squad was now whispering among themselves. Little Pink Hair, fuming with anger, slapped Sophie's buttocks hard and said, "That Lufia guy actually became one of the candidates, too. How dare he have the courage to arm wrestle with Princess Sophie?" Sophie maintained a calm and unperturbed expression, clearly a high-level green tea player. He confidently told Little Pink Cat, "Don't worry about that Lufia guy. He's no match for me anyway. But when the time comes, Pink Hair's sister, you must support me well, okay?" Seeing another chance to flatter, Pink Hair's fighting spirit was also ignited. "Your Highness, rest assured, our pink fluffy Earl family was born to assist you." Sophie now only felt a tingling sensation on his buttocks. It felt very comfortable. Little Pink Hair was indeed a capable subordinate. The force of each pat was just right. With a gloomy expression, it was clear he was preparing to implement his sinister plan. Just then, there was a knock on Lufia's door. After conversing with the person outside, Maid Mary returned. She told Miss Lufia, "An unfamiliar female student just told me that the time for the candidate speeches has been changed from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Upon hearing this, Lufia's heavy mood immediately lightened. Now she could sleep for another hour. But she didn't know that the speech meeting had actually already begun. Princess Lufia of the Millennium was preparing to run for Student Council representative. But at this moment, the election speeches had already started. Yet Lufia was still sound asleep in bed. Little Pink Hair smugly muttered to herself, "It seems that Lufia guy isn't very smart after all. We sent someone to tell him the speech meeting was delayed by an hour, and he actually believed it." At this moment, it was Princess Sophie's turn to speak on stage. This woman, dressed in a noble and gorgeous gown, made her entrance. Those who didn't know might have thought she was here to participate in a beauty pageant. Sophie spoke confidently, with a sense of superiority. First, she rambled on about how powerful her family was, and then stated that she was the most noble person in this academy. This irrelevant speech made the audience below drowsy. In any case, it all boiled down to one thing. If she were elected as the Student Council representative, it would be a blessing for all students. These words made the audience break out in cold sweat, and their favorability towards Sophie plummeted. Only a few diehard green tea fans were still cheering for her. The hostess impatiently announced that Princess Sophie's speech was over. It was now Princess Lufia's turn, but the stage fell silent. They waited for a long time, but there was no sign of Lufia. Sophie had a mischievous smile on her face. Now, the position of Student Council representative was surely hers. But she rejoiced too soon. Lufia shouted loudly, "Sorry, I'm late." It turned out that just moments ago, Little Pink Hair had been muttering to herself, praising her own scheme. Little Deer overheard her nearby and quickly went to inform Lufia. Lufia stood on the podium. Unlike Sophie, she didn't appear arrogant. Instead, she solemnly performed a lady's curtsy to the students. This gesture instantly brought her closer to her classmates. Then she began to recount the events that had occurred with her classmates since her enrollment. Her words emphasized the importance of community. In essence, her message was clear. Lynette Academy had grown to its current strength, thanks to the honest and upright professors and the collective efforts of the students. She expressed her hope that students at this academy would not be ranked based on their family's power or status, because everyone who graduates from here will become a source of pride for Lynette Academy. As she finished speaking, thunderous applause erupted from the audience. The students couldn't believe that Princess Lufia, born into the most noble family, was proposing equality and rejecting the notion of judging people based on family power. Even those students who initially supported Sophie were won over. They switched sides and cast their votes for Princess Lufia. Lufia, in her bid for the Student Council representative position, had initially planned to conceal her true strength during the speech, not wanting to embarrass her opponent too badly. However, she misjudged her impact, leaving Princess Sophie utterly defeated and crestfallen. When the voting results were posted, Lufia had won by an overwhelming margin. Poor Princess Sophie didn't even make it into the top 10. What made it even worse for Sophie was that her trusted aide, Little Pink Hair, had been elected as the student vice representative, coming in second place. Sophie let out a cold snort. She stormed off angrily, with Little Pink Hair fearfully chasing after her. Little Pink Hair was still trying to comfort Princess Sophie, saying, "Don't be angry, Your Highness. It's just a student council representative position. We don't need it anyway." But Sophie replied with a cold, sarcastic laugh. "Thank you for your comfort, Lady Pinkish Countess. I must say, I'm quite envious of you. You've successfully become the grade's student vice representative. Your status is now a notch above mine, a mere ordinary student. For someone as incompetent as me, it should be considered an honor to associate with the grade's vice representative, shouldn't it?" These words made Little Pink Hair break out in a cold sweat. Sophie wasn't even calling her Little Pink Hair sister anymore, but addressing her by her full title. Little Pink Hair hurriedly and nervously responded, "Your Highness, how could you think that way? I am your most loyal follower. I would never betray you, not even if the mountains crumble and the earth splits open. If you dislike it, I can resign from the position of grade vice representative immediately." Hearing this, Sophie continued her sarcastic tone. "Lady Pinkish, please don't say such things. If others were to hear, they might think I'm forcing you to resign from your position." Little Pink Hair, flustered and at a loss, quickly explained, "Princess Sophie, please don't misunderstand. That's not what I meant. I just wanted to prove my loyalty to you." At this point, Sophie, having achieved her goal, immediately revealed a cunning smile. She smoothly offered Little Pink Hair a way out. "It seems I indeed misunderstood you, Little Pink Hair sister. After all, you are my most precious friend. And since we're best friends, shouldn't friends be willing to go through thick and thin for each other? I'd like to ask for your help. Since you'll be by Lufia's side, assisting her in the future, I hope you can use every means possible to bring that woman Lufia down from her position as student council representative." Princess Chinsui. Lufia had successfully become the student council representative. On her first day in office, she reported to the student council president's office. Seeing his wife arrive, the fourth prince maintained a calm expression, but I suspect his heart was racing with excitement. The fourth prince first placed a large stack of documents requiring approval in front of Lufia, indicating that this would be her work from now on. Then, with a gentle expression, he said that these approval documents were originally her responsibility, but considering that her body couldn't handle long hours of work, he could take on some of the burden for her. Lufia politely declined. Since she had chosen to be the student council representative, she wouldn't shirk any of the responsibilities that were rightfully hers. Moreover, those classmates had sincerely supported her to be the representative. She had to follow the rules and do her job well. The fourth prince was momentarily stunned, then smiled appreciatively. Perhaps it was Lufia's serious attitude that made him so interested in her. The fourth prince stopped trying to persuade her. He stood up, changed into a charming outfit, and gave Lufia her first task. He wanted Lufia to accompany him to the graduate library to retrieve a document. The graduate library was newly built in recent years. So Lufia, who had been the academy's headmaster 200 years ago, wasn't very familiar with it. However, as soon as she arrived, Lufia was amazed. She hadn't expected the academy to have such a beautiful place. Opening her eyes, she could see distant green mountains. Closing them, she could feel the gentle breeze and hear birdsong. It was truly a peaceful sanctuary for retirement. A moment later, the fourth prince retrieved the document. He didn't rush back to the office. Instead, with a shy expression that clearly indicated he wanted to say something flirtatious, he told Lufia that they needed to go to several more places to collect documents. Lufia didn't think much of it and obediently followed the fourth prince. The two strolled through various corners of the academy, passing through a glass courtyard filled with fresh flowers and a beautiful plaza with fountains. The important part came when they unknowingly reached the academy gates. The fourth prince pointed to the bridge ahead and said it was the largest bridge in the academy. It was also famous as a dating spot within the academy. As he said this, the man's expression was full of bashfulness. Lufia finally understood. So much for collecting documents. He was actually abusing his power to take her on a walk and a date. The man became even bolder, directly inviting Lufia to go shopping in the commercial street outside. He even offered to cover all the expenses for the day. Lufia couldn't find any excuse to refuse. This man had really gone to great lengths to date her. But since she was already here, she decided to go along with it for a day. After all, it had been a long time since she went shopping for new clothes. Princess Qiansui Lufia, as the student council representative, on her first day in office, was taken out shopping by the fourth prince under the pretext of work. Although it looked like they were on a date, this was purely the fourth prince's one-sided action. However, Lufia found that being the student council representative wasn't bad at all. At least she could slack off during work hours. As the two were shopping, they passed by a cake shop. Lufia thought that if she brought some back for her maid Mary, she would be overjoyed. But Lufia noticed the hot weather. If she were to bring the cake back like this, it would definitely melt. The fourth prince, noticing Lufia's concern, immediately sought to solve his wife's problem. He took the wrapped cake in his hands and converted his inner energy into cold air, claiming this would prevent it from melting. Lufia watched the man's actions in amazement. Wasn't this level of inner energy control something only exceptional sword masters could achieve? Yet he was using it to chill a cake for her. The man's expression was full of intimacy, clearly anticipating Lufia's praise. But Lufia suggested they should hurry back, or she wouldn't be able to finish her work. Upon returning, the man sincerely apologized to Lufia. He admitted that taking her out today was due to his personal desires and asked for her forgiveness. Lufia could easily discern the man's intentions behind these words, but she had enjoyed the outing today, so she decided not to hold it against him. Meanwhile, Sophie, having lost the student council representative election, was now having tea with Little Pink Hair, the student council vice representative. In just a few words, Little Pink Hair was completely under Sophie's control. Sophie expressed that as an ordinary student, it was an honor to have tea with the vice representative. Little Pink Hair sensed the hidden meaning in these words. She immediately stated that if Sophie wished, she would resign from her position as vice representative right away. Hearing this, Sophie felt the time was ripe. That won't be necessary, but there is one small thing I need you to do. Remove Princess Lufia from her position as student representative. Little Pink Hair was still hesitant, but the viper-like Princess Sophie hinted ominously. If anyone in our social circle were to have even the slightest negative rumor, their life would be over. With these words, Little Pink Hair, who hoped to rise to prominence through Princess Sophie, immediately grabbed a large stack of documents and headed to Lufia's office. Lufia thought the vice representative had come to report in, but Little Pink Hair said, "Please focus on work and don't try to get familiar with me." Lufia wasn't angered by this. Little Pink Hair walked straight to the desk. She slammed down the documents, stating they were urgent and must be completed and submitted within 3 days. She warned that if Lufia rushed through them carelessly, she would definitely file a report. Lufia was exasperated. This little cutie had seemed quite likable. Why was she causing trouble as soon as Lufia took office? Soon, Lufia chuckled lightly and asked, "Is this all?" Little Pink Hair paused upon hearing this. Lufia continued, "Are there any other documents that need to be processed? If so, I'll handle them all today." Little Pink Hair was shocked. "What? You can process all these documents today?" Lufia, with a confident expression, instructed Little Pink Hair, "Come get them tomorrow morning." Little Pink Hair thought Lufia was going to work blindly just to prove herself capable, and immediately warned her to reconsider carefully. Seeing this, Lufia suggested, "How about we make a bet? If I don't finish processing these documents by tomorrow, I'll agree to any condition you set. But if I win from now on, you must do everything I say." The 1,000-year Princess Lufia had originally intended to slack off in this life, but she never expected herself to be a lolicon. When she saw Little Pink Hair's innocent and pure expression, Lufia suddenly realized she really needed a personal secretary. So, after making this seemingly impossible bet with Little Pink Hair, Lufia worked through the night to complete the stack of documents that was 8.88 meters high. This left Little Pink Hair completely stunned. In this way, Lufia successfully brought Little Pink Hair under her control. And the very next day, she dumped all the student council work onto Little Pink Hair. Seeing this, Little Pink Hair was angry but dared to speak up. Her little fists randomly pounded on the desk. She cried out in an adorably fierce manner, "Do I have to do all of this?" Little Pink Hair displayed a demeanor that made one not want to merely observe from afar, but rather to approach and pinch her cheeks. This was exactly what Lufia had hoped for. Lufia smirked and said, "What? You can't handle it. How can a woman say she can't do something? Little Pink Hair's fighting spirit instantly ignited. She declared that she could finish these trivial matters in no time. Seeing this, Lufia's eyes crinkled with amusement. She decided to properly train Little Pink Hair. As they say, when brave souls meet on a narrow path, the bolder one wins. That day, Lufia took Little Pink Hair to make a report. However, they encountered Sophie in the corridor. The woman, without even a sideways glance, stated that she wanted to have a private word with Little Pink Hair. Little Pink Hair, with an uneasy expression, reluctantly agreed. Lufia observed Little Pink Hair's expression. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. Weren't these two supposed to be close friends? Why did Little Pink Hair seem so afraid of Sophie? As Lufia watched their retreating figures, she sensed that something wasn't quite right. Just then, a magnetic voice came from behind Lufia. She turned around to find the golden-haired, blue-eyed crown prince looking at her with an ambiguous expression. Seeing this, alarm bells went off in Lufia's mind. If there was anything in this academy that could truly annoy her, it was encountering this man before her. But as fate would have it, she was the grade representative, and His Highness the Crown Prince was the professor in charge of the first-year students. So she had to report to this man every week. The man knew full well that Lufia didn't want to see him, but the Crown Prince, with his face thicker than a city wall, naturally knew how to make excuses for himself. I'm just a temporary professor at the lowest level. I can only follow the organization's arrangements. He even stated that if he had known Lufia would become the first-year representative, he would have found a way to be in charge no matter what. Lufia put down the cup in her hand and said without a hint of emotion, "I've already made myself very clear last time. I will not accept your highness's feelings." But judging from the man's attitude, it seemed he no longer cared whether she accepted or not. After all, for a gentleman like the Crown Prince, once he set his sights on a target, he would never give up. Lufia sighed. It seemed she would have to leave the academy sooner rather than later. The man displayed a smile he thought was understanding, stating that he wasn't the kind of scoundrel who liked to force others. Besides, he added, "A forced melon isn't sweet. I'll wait for you to open your heart to me." Lufia scoffed. She stood up, placed a stack of reports in front of the man, and said, "If you have nothing to do, then find something to do." The man flipped through the reports, repeatedly praising them, saying they were perfectly done. Lufia remained unperturbed by his words. In her previous life, she had been the king's proxy. These tasks were child's play to her. Seeing that he had finished checking, Lufia prepared to leave. The man called out to her, "The atmosphere around you lately doesn't seem too good. Are you aware of this?" Lufia understood he was referring to the matter with Princess Sophie. The man continued speaking to himself. "I feel like you're going to run into trouble. Do you want me to help you?" The girl replied expressionlessly with 4 words. "That won't be necessary." The millennial princess now stood by the window, feeling deeply melancholic. Originally, she had only wanted to coast through this life, yet she unexpectedly encountered the endearing Little Pink Hair. This rekindled her interest in this life. But why was that? To understand this, we need to go back to Lufia's previous life. Back then, the millennial princess Lufia had only one close friend. That was her personal knight, Jenny. This girl named Jenny also had a head of beautiful, glossy, pink hair. Her sharp tongue, but soft heart, was exactly like Little Pink Hair's. In fact, Jenny went to great lengths every day to ensure Lufia's safety. However, the seemingly cheerful Jenny had a burden that was difficult to unravel. Because before Jenny was born, pink hair was extremely rare across the entire continent. So at that time, anyone with pink hair would be considered an aberration and burned alive. This made Jenny, who came later, feel insecure about her hair color. Seeing this, Lufia comforted her. "We all like you, including your pink hair. Isn't that enough?" Although Jenny's heart was consoled, Lufia coming alone to this unfamiliar place made her very angry. Because recently, the king of a neighboring country had set his sights on the then beautiful Lufia. It would be trouble if Lufia were to encounter enemies. Happy days are always short-lived, due to internal rebellion in Lufia's allied country. The neighboring king seized the opportunity to attack. In fact, Jenny sacrificed her life to protect Lufia. The weakened Jenny, her small hand trembling, caressed Lufia's cheek. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Witnessing everything, Lufia, with tears in her eyes, said, "If there's a next life, you must be happy." Returning to the present reality, Lufia couldn't help but choke up. The suppressed emotions compelled her to go out and clear her mind. As soon as Lufia stepped out, she saw Little Pink Hair sitting alone in a corner, looking gloomy. Why does this guy look so unhappy? It's rare for the usually naive one to have something on their mind. Lufia composed herself. She approached and tapped little pink hair on the shoulder, saying, well, hiding here all alone to wallow. Little pink hair's expression grew even more somber. She said she just wanted to be alone for a while. Lufia guessed it must be Sophie's doing. She then took little pink hair's hand, and just like that, the bewildered little pink hair was led away by Lufia for afternoon tea. But little pink hair immediately jumped up at this. What's going on? I don't have time to accompany you. Lufia responded, didn't you say you do whatever I say? Little pink hair was momentarily speechless. Lufia then subtly hinted to little pink hair, saying she could tell what was going on at a glance. If there was anything she needed help with, she should just say so. Little pink hair told Lufia not to meddle in her affairs. Besides, will having afternoon tea here really improve my mood? Lufia deftly began feeding little pink hair. In an instant, little pink hair realized these desserts were truly delicious. But immediately after, she put on a tsundere expression. She declared that if Lufia had this much free time, she should go process documents instead. That way, she wouldn't have to stay up all night rushing to finish later. Seeing little pink hair's mood improve, Lufia stood up and said, well, if I can't finish processing them, I'll just hand them all over to you. This statement reignited little pink hair's spirit. Of course, this was just a joke. Lufia once again instructed little pink hair to come to her if she encountered any problems she couldn't solve. Little pink hair couldn't understand. Why are you suddenly being so nice to me? At this moment, her face was filled with confusion, as if she had 10,000 questions. Lufia stepped forward and delivered a fatal head pat, because our little pink hair's pink hair is very cute. After saying this, she left little pink hair alone, bewildered in the wind.